Our story begins as Yuan Ming is transported into a game world, where he immediately gains the unique hidden talent, Eternal Power. This incredible gift allows every Eternal unit within his territory to take any short-term buff they receive and turn it into a permanent ability. He is stunned, realizing that a single support skill now grants a lifelong advantage. It is essentially a cheat code, to be honest, but what excites him even more is the world itself. This frozen survival realm happens to be the exact same game he played in his previous life. With all his past experience, he is certain that in this new era, he can stay far ahead of everyone else. He is ready to soar and change his fate, but a moment later, a woman suddenly appears by his side. It is Lu Muxue, the widowed fiancée of his late boss. Simultaneously, a system notification appears. The game is launching a family survival mode, a new version where players are grouped in units of up to 4. Those without relatives nearby will be randomly separated, but he understands the situation immediately. He had been driving to pick up Muxue for the boss's funeral just as the game invaded reality. The timing was perfect, it seems. However, his attention is quickly drawn to the class selection panel. Players can choose from 5 distinct professions: Cold Iron Mechanic, Polar Warrior, and Frost Mage, as well as Laser Knight and Snow Hunter. Thanks to his gaming history, he knows the secrets of each. Among them, the Cold Iron Mechanic is arguably the most powerful of all. However, that is a late-game class, and its combat power is notoriously weak in the early stages. While the Polar Warrior and Snow Hunter offer decent early-game strength, they have their own drawbacks. They often struggle with mana later on. That leaves the Frost Mage and the Laser Knight. The Laser Knight is a support role meant for teamwork, while the Frost Mage performs well at every stage. And so, without a second thought, he chooses the path of the Frost Mage. A notification chimes, congratulating Yuan Ming on choosing the Frost Mage class and unlocking his elemental affinity. His cold resistance increases slightly, and his starting equipment is automatically placed into his storage box. The system then warns us that only 4 hours and 32 minutes remain before nightfall. Fortunately, monsters won't attack the camp during the 5-day novice protection period. A small mercy, really. Yuan Ming frowns, noting the temperature is already minus 32 degrees and will drop another 20 at night. Surviving the freeze depends entirely on the campfire and the Spirit Pearl cabin, though the fire is easier to manage. It can raise the temperature within 10 meters by up to 20 degrees, which is sufficient for now. However, the Spirit Pearl cabin is currently in ruins and requires stone and wood for repairs. Luckily, we see a pile of white stones and cut wood near the campfire, which he prepares to gather. Just then, Muxue finally finishes processing the system messages and calls out to him, asking for advice. She is unsure which class to pick and asks Yuan Ming what would be best for her. He suggests she choose the Laser Knight, though, to be honest, he has a bit of a selfish motive. The Laser Knight gains powerful buff skills later on, but their effects are usually very brief. With his Eternal Power talent, however, he can turn those temporary boosts into permanent status effects. Imagine the sheer terror of an army bolstered by an infinite stack of permanent buffs. Muxue doesn't doubt his decision. In this strange new world, he is the only person she knows. Yuan Ming then opens the starter chest, obtaining bread, recipes, a stone hammer, and other essential supplies. He immediately begins gathering materials to repair the broken cabin, while Muxue offers to help as well. He directs her to collect resources for the campfire, and soon, the flames reach level 2. The warmth now reaches 20 meters, just as the Spirit Pearl cabin is successfully restored. A system notification chimes, announcing that the territory interface is unlocked. We see that he can now build more basic infrastructure. The system then informs him that, as the very first survivor to repair a Spirit Pearl cabin, he has earned a special reward. He receives a skill book for ice healing, a useful spell that consumes a bit of mental power to mend wounds. It allows the target to recover 0.8 health points per second for 3 seconds, a modest start, but vital for survival. Skill books are quite rare, making this an unexpected stroke of luck, so he quickly opens his personal panel to check his progress. In the construction interface, he selects the Polar Dweller cabin, a structure that allows him to summon workers by spending food. This cabin can house 4 people and normally takes 45 minutes to repair, time that is currently in short supply. Adding more people to the task can speed up the process, and based on his gaming experience, he knows exactly what to do. The optimal strategy for a first building is always to get the Polar Dweller cabin up and running as quickly as possible. He calls Muxue over to help, and with their combined efforts, the cabin is restored to its former glory in no time. Once again, the system notes that he is the first survivor in the entire server to complete a Polar Dweller cabin. He is rewarded with 50 loaves of bread, which is a massive relief since recruiting 1 worker costs 5 units of food. With this sudden windfall, he can easily recruit all 4 workers without feeling the slightest bit of pressure on his supplies. The workers have their own names, of course, but to keep things simple, he decides to rename them for his own convenience. He calls them De Zhuang, Air Zhuang, Sen Zhuang, and Si Zhuang before turning his attention back to the building panel. At this stage, he can build indoor stoves, cooking benches, lumber yards, and even a tailor shop to help them brave the cold. However, these require a vast amount of resources, so he immediately sends De Zhuang and Er Zhuang out to chop wood. While they gather timber, he sends San Zhuang and Si Zhuang to the nearby rocks to collect the necessary stone. As for Yuan Ming and Mu Xue, they use the remaining materials to upgrade the campfire to level 3, pushing back the frost. Finally, they head inside to build a stove and some basic furniture, allowing him to breathe a sigh of relief at last. We see him check the chat panel and open the world channel, where almost everyone is complaining about their confusion in this new world. He realizes that, apart from himself, it seems no one else has ever played this game before, which, naturally, gives him a significant advantage. Suddenly, Er Zhuang's voice echoes from outside the camp, and as soon as he sees Yuan Ming, the worker rushes over in a panic. He gasps out that there is a massive snake in the forest area outside the camp, and that things have taken a turn for the worse. De Zhuang has been bitten and is fading fast, so Yuan Ming quickly opens the worker's status panel to assess the damage. He sees that the man's health is halved and he's suffering from a poison status, but deep down, he feels a sense of relief. Level 1 poisoning is manageable. He simply needs Mu Xue to cast a purification spell, and she begins to whisper the incantation. She calls for the Holy Aurora to bless him, and in an instant, the toxins are purged from De Zhuang's system. At the same time, Yuan Ming decides to practice his own ice healing, and we see a strange glow begin to surround De Zhuang's head. Green particles of life energy float upward continuously as the system confirms that the ice healing spell has been successfully cast. Then, something incredible happens. His eternal power talent activates, making the healing effect a permanent state, leaving him utterly stunned. He hadn't expected a healing spell to become a permanent buff, but his shock quickly transforms into pure excitement. This means De Zhuang is now a frontline tank with infinite health regeneration. He is, for all intents and purposes, invincible. As De Zhuang feels the surging power within his body, he looks at his master and speaks with profound respect. He thanks the Lord, claiming that Yuan Ming's power is truly great and vast, and who could blame him for being impressed? The system notes that De Zhuang's loyalty has jumped from 70 to 80, while Yuan Ming wonders if this trick works on everyone. He questions if the healing can be applied to himself and Mu Xue as well, so he immediately casts the spell on her to test it. Sure enough, the system confirms the ice healing is now permanent. Both he and Mu Xue are left staring at each other in disbelief. The ability is simply game-breaking, but as he prepares to cast it on himself, a sudden wave of dizziness washes over him. He understands that he has reached the limit of his mental power for now, but to be honest, it hardly matters after such a victory. He decides to lead the now immortal De Zhuang and the others to deal with that massive snake once and for all, and they soon arrive at the scene. The system reveals the serpent is a level 2 monster. No wonder De Zhuang and his companion couldn't handle it before. However, with De Zhuang now acting as an unstoppable frontline tank, the group manages to slay the beast in no time at all. A notification appears. The Snowfield Viper has been successfully slain, granting him 30 experience points. Congratulations are indeed in order. As the first being in this region to kill a wild monster, he is granted a special first kill reward. It is a Snake Man Priest recruitment scroll, capable of summoning a level 5 priest to his side. Eager for the extra combat assistance, Yuan Ming wastes no time and chooses to use the scroll immediately. In an instant, a beautiful serpent woman appears before him, her presence both elegant and intimidating. He checks the status panel for this new ally, Elena, and his expression shifts as he realizes she possesses 2 powerful buff skills. The first is Scale Armor, providing 10 extra armor points to herself or an ally, and the second is Snake Man Berserk. This second skill grants a frenzy effect to herself or a friendly unit, pushing their limits for a short duration. Normally, it increases movement and attack speed by 20% for 60 seconds, but we know that normal doesn't apply here. As long as it is a buff-type skill, it can be made permanent when paired with his eternal power talent. He immediately instructs Elena to cast both skills on the entire group, and in a flash, everyone, including Yuan Ming himself, is affected. Now, every single member of his small party enjoys the permanent protection and speed of these 2 powerful abilities. To return the favor, he also casts a permanent ice healing spell on Elena, ensuring she stays in peak condition. Feeling the surge of endless power, Elena is overcome with awe and looks at him with pure wonder, calling him her lord. She marvels at how his power seems vast and unpredictable, while he simply nods and begins to dismantle the Viper's carcass. He obtains a poison sac that can add toxic damage to weapons, along with 17 pieces of fresh snake meat. At the sight of the meat, De Zhuang and Er Zhuang's eyes go wide. It has clearly been a very long time since they last had a proper meal. One of them declares he would gladly give his life for just a single bite of meat, which brings a smile to Yuan Ming's face. He tells them that as long as they work hard, everyone will be enjoying a hot pot of snake soup tonight. Upon returning to the camp, San Zhuang approaches with a report, addressing him respectfully as the Spirit Lord. It seems that not far from where they were gathering food, they discovered a small coal mine. However, the area is guarded by 2 snow wolves, so he didn't dare to get close enough for a proper look. Yuan Ming's eyes light up at the mention of coal, a fuel far superior to wood for providing heat in this frozen wasteland. With coal available, he can save his timber for building other facilities. He then asks about the strength of those wolves. Sanjuang estimates they are slightly stronger than the Viper, leading Yuan Ming to conclude they are likely level 3 or 4 monsters. With the level 5 Elena now on his side, he is confident they have the strength to conquer the mine and praises his scouts. He promises the scouts extra meat for dinner before immediately leading the group toward the cave, arriving shortly after. Information about the mine appears before his eyes, and at the same time, we see the 2 snow wolves standing guard. The status panel confirms they are level 3 wild monsters, but against a team with infinite healing and defense, they stand little chance. Elena joins the fray, and before the battle has even truly begun, the system notifications start rolling in. Elena successfully slays the snow wolves, granting her 40 experience points while Yuan Ming receives 20 for his own progress. He sets to work dismantling the wolf carcasses, and it turns out that luck is on his side once again today. In addition to 2 green-grade wolf pelts, the harvest yields a staggering 134 portions of wolf meat. He gathers bones and fangs, but the real prize is a blue-grade item, a Twin Wolf Knight recruitment scroll. This particular scroll allows him to immediately summon a powerful level 10 Twin Wolf Knight to join his ranks. The system reminds him to ensure he has enough food first, a fair point, considering he just summoned Elena earlier. First a level 5 priest, and now a level 10 knight. To be honest, his power is growing at an incredible rate. Furthermore, we see that the wolf pelts are exactly the raw material needed to craft cold-resistant clothing. This perfectly solves the urgent problem for both Yuan Ming and Liu Mushui, so he immediately sets one pelt aside. At that moment, the system speaks again, announcing that as the first survivor to occupy a resource point, he is rewarded with purple-grade equipment, the ancient weapon Barrett, along with 10 rounds of 12.7mm ammunition. He is momentarily stunned by the notification. It is actually a Barrett sniper rifle. He hasn't misheard. This ancient weapon boasts an incredible attack power of 967 to 993. With an attack interval of just 2 seconds, it comes with devastating special effects that he can now utilize. It is an unbelievable piece of technology, far beyond anything he expected to wield in this wasteland. He realizes the sheer potential of this weapon, noting again that it can fire every 2 seconds with precision. The first effect is armor piercing, giving him a 50% chance to ignore 100 points of enemy armor. The second effect is headshot, which deals an additional 50% damage when striking an enemy's head. He is shocked. In this early stage of the game, 900 attack power is practically god-tier strength. Though he only has 10 bullets, once the territory reaches level 4, he can unlock a bullet processing workshop. With ammunition worries postponed, he stows the Barrett and enters the cave to officially claim the mine. The system informs him that a bronze chest remains inside, along with a blueprint for a market. Once built, this will allow him to trade resources with other survivors. He then checks the remaining loot. Among the items is a staff he can use himself, and the snow boots are excellent for cold protection. There is also a medical kit for treating colds and flu, a vital find, and he confirms nothing else remains. He dismantles the bronze chest to gain 5 pieces of copper before heading back outside to meet Liu Mushui. She informs him that they have gathered 112 pieces of coal, which should last them a long time. With a gentle smile, we see Yuan Ming look at the shivering Liu Mushui before handing her the newly found snow boots. Liu Mushui's eyes are filled with gratitude, but her legs are so frozen that even changing her shoes has become a struggle. He decides to help her put them on himself, later carrying her back to the territory in his arms while she blushes furiously. She says nothing, however, and upon returning to the base, he immediately begins by reviewing their gathered resources. He then instructs De Zhuang and Er Zhuang to build a lumber mill, while San Zhuang is tasked with constructing the market. Si Zhuang is sent to build a small shelter for Elena to live in, and once these orders are given, the work begins. The group can finally rest and eat, so he and Liu Mushui head over to the neighbor's cabin together. He suggests that Liu Mushui take a short rest while he gets to work building a simple cooking stove for their meal. He begins cooking the snake meat they obtained earlier, just as the sky outside begins to darken with the coming night. The temperature begins to drop sharply, reaching a staggering -50°C outside, a truly lethal chill. Even inside with the stove lit, it only reaches -16°, but fortunately, De Zhuang and the others finish their work. They complete the construction just in time and return to the cabin, where Yuan Ming gathers them all together. He tells them he is very satisfied with their performance today, and as a reward, they can enjoy this pot of snake soup. Seeing actual meat, the men are overcome with emotion, vowing between bites to work even harder to repay their lord's kindness. Their loyalty soars in this moment, with their favorability ratings all climbing well above 80 points. He then turns his attention to Elena, whose hunger has reached 50%, and asks if she prefers her meat raw or cooked. She requests raw meat, so he nods and pulls out 2 pieces of snake meat to hand over to her. But after a moment's thought, he puts the snake meat back and hands her 2 pieces of wolf meat instead. Elena's favorability increases instantly, though her hunger level only improves slightly, rising to 60%. He frowns, knowing that failing to reach a full state for too long will eventually cause her loyalty to drop. Since she is his primary combat force and remains quite useful, Yuanming decides to simply take out 4 more pieces of meat. He raises her hunger level to 80, though Elena's massive appetite honestly makes him let out a weary sigh. He remembers he still has an even more powerful recruitment scroll for the Twin Wolf Knights, which gets him thinking. It seems that starting tomorrow, he will have to find a way to gather significantly more food to keep everyone fed. As the night makes it impossible to work or explore outside, he decides to open the world chat interface instead. We see him checking to see how other survivors are developing, but unfortunately, the situation looks quite grim for most. The feed is filled with death notices and warnings, though a few players have shared some of their own hard-earned insights. They suggest prioritizing the Lord's cabin and survival shopping, noting that one is invincible while inside their own territory. This allows them to dodge monster attacks, and after a moment's thought, Yuanming decides to write down his own advice. He warns that the nighttime temperature will drop to -60 degrees, and if they can't build a cabin in time, they can use wooden planks and stones to build a simple shelter to barely survive the first night's lethal cold. After that, he switches to the regional channel, which the system describes as a square area 500 kilometers wide. We can see that the current area is designated as Region 174, a place where many now find themselves struggling. The online count shows that out of over 40,000 people, only 38,224 remain. As for the messages, he notices that most people seem to be from cities that were near each other in the old world. It appears the transmigration randomly grouped people from neighboring municipalities together in this strange new land. The chat is a chaotic mix of cries for help, shared tips, and various trade offers popping up every second. He heads to the market intending to trade for supplies, where one listing for a mage skill book, Soldier's Armor, immediately catches his eye. This skill can increase the armor value of allies for a certain period of time, which is a very practical benefit. Although the mental energy cost is quite high, it is a cumulative skill that would be incredibly useful for his current needs. As long as it's paired with his eternal power, the shield will last forever, making it, quite frankly, a god-tier skill. The asking price of 50 food units is steep, but the seller has noted that they are open to bargaining. Yuanming decides to send a private message, asking if they would trade the soldier's armor book for 10 food units. The seller is outraged, replying that asking for a skill book for only 10 food units is practically highway robbery. He tells the seller not to panic, explaining that the food he is offering isn't just any ordinary survival ration. When he mentions its meat, the seller is shocked he found some so quickly, so Yuanming sends over the item details. The man responds immediately, demanding at least 40 food units, or 8 pieces of snake meat. Otherwise, there is no deal. Yuanming scoffs, offering a maximum of 3 pieces of snake meat while pointing out that this skill's drop rate isn't actually that low. He warns that after tomorrow, food will be even harder to find, which causes the seller to hesitate for a moment. The seller finally gives in, figuring 3 pieces of meat is enough for his family to survive one more day if they're careful. Seeing this, Yuanming feels a flicker of sympathy and adjusts the offer to 20 food units by adding 5 extra loaves of bread. The other party happily agrees, and we see Yuanming successfully obtaining the soldier's armor skill book. The skill consumes mental energy to increase his or an ally's armor by a factor of 0.6 times his spirit stat. It normally lasts for 30 seconds, and with his current spirit at 8, it should provide 5 points of armor. But a moment later, just as the system confirms the successful casting of the soldier's armor skill, the eternal power talent takes effect, and the skill's duration is transformed into a permanent state. His armor is now permanently increased by 5 points, bringing his total armor value to a very respectable 15. At this level, attacks from monsters below level 3 won't even be able to scratch him, which is quite a relief, really. After that, he casts a layer of soldier's armor on Mushua, who has been browsing the chat channels herself. She begins to realize the grim reality of other survivors, understanding now that not everyone is as fortunate as she is. Having already settled into the warmth of the neighbor's cabin, Mushua looks at him and softly says, "Thank you," axing. She admits that without him, she might have frozen to death outside, but Yuanming simply tells his sister-in-law it's fine. He explains that since they've been paired up, they need to work together and support one another. To survive better in this world, he believes that helping her is, in a way, also helping himself. Mushua promises to adapt as quickly as possible so she won't hold him back, and with a quiet goodnight, the conversation ends. As the two of them prepare to sleep, someone suddenly sends Mushua a friend request out of the blue. It turns out to be Mushua's mother, and a video call invitation immediately follows the request. After a moment of hesitation, Mushua accepts, only to hear her mother, Bayunlin, immediately demanding help. She asks if Mushua has any extra food to spare, complaining that her daughter has no idea how hard they have it. She claims that she, Mushua's 2 younger brothers, and her father are suffering because their supply crate had so little food. Apparently, it wasn't even enough for a single meal for the boys, and Mushiwa listens to the ranting for a long time. A bitter smile crosses Mushiwa's lips as she realizes that, even in this new world, things are exactly as they were back on Earth. Her parents don't seem to care whether she lives or dies. They only care about what resources they can take from her. She remembers how, back home, they had tried to force her to marry some local thug just for their own benefit. Fortunately, the man died before the wedding, and then she was transported here, finally escaping that nightmare of a family. Hoping to end the pressure, she tells them she doesn't have any extra food, but her father isn't buying it. He immediately interrogates her, asking if she's lying to them while he stares at her through the screen. He points out that she's already living in a house and demands to know where she got the fur coat she's wearing. Before she can answer, the voice of one of her younger brothers pipes up in the background with a sharp observation. The boy tells his parents that the fur is wolf skin, meaning Mushiwa has already killed a wolf and must have meat. Her mother's voice turns venomous, screaming that Mushiwa is a liar for refusing to share meat with her own family. She calls her daughter an ungrateful wolf, and faced with these cruel accusations, Mushiwa's eyes fill with tears. As Mushiwa stands there trembling and helpless, her mother only doubles down, asking why she has the nerve to look aggrieved. She snaps that the rest of them have been starving all day, claiming that Mushiwa thinks she's too good for them now. But this is where we see Axing suddenly appear by Mushiwa's side, calling the parents out for their endless noise. He asks what they're squawking about, prompting the mother to demand who he is and why he's interrupting her daughter. Axing calmly tells her she doesn't need to know who he is, and as for his right to speak, he reminds them that he killed the wolf and the meat belongs to him, so their demands are nothing but a dream. He declares he won't give them a single breadcrumb, noting that they have their own hands and feet to work with. He asks if they have no shame, trying to suck the life out of their daughter instead of finding their own food. After that, he reports their account for harassment, and a dazed Mushiwa follows his lead. She immediately hangs up the video call, and suddenly, the world is quiet again, though she remains visibly shaken. She struggles to keep her emotions under control, but she manages to look at him with genuine gratitude. Softly, she thanks Axing for stepping in and putting an end to the nightmare. He tells his sister-in-law it's fine, explaining that people who want something for nothing will get nothing from him. He warns her to remember this. No matter who asks for food or resources, she must never give in. If she allows it once, there will surely be a second time, and they will never stop asking for more. He asks if she understands, and we see Mushiwa realize that in this harsh new world, things are different. She sees that fate has finally given her the chance to escape her toxic family and start over completely. And so, with a solemn expression, she nods and promises Axing that she will stay strong. And then, suddenly remembering something, Mushiwa walks over to the stove and brings back a small bucket of hot water. She looks at Axing and notes that his feet look a bit red from the biting cold. She offers to wash his feet with the warm water. Meanwhile, her parents are back home, absolutely fuming with rage. However, the father suddenly has a realization. Axing looks familiar. After a moment, the mother finally recognizes him too. We learn that they had previously tried to force Mushiwa to marry a local underworld boss named Xinjiang. And this young man, as it turns out, was just a driver under Xinjiang, specifically assigned to drive Mushiwa around. Realizing he is just a driver, the father gives a cold, calculating smile as a new plan begins to take shape. He had just seen on his screen that Fong Long, from the city's Sanying Society, was currently gathering his men. Since Fong Long was once one of Mushiwa's obsessed pursuers, the father decides he can contact him to request assistance. His goal is to use that opportunity to get rid of Axing once and for all. Soon, we move to the following day. A global announcement informs all survivors that they have survived the first night, with 4 days and 22 hours of protection remaining. Checking the chat channel, Axing sees the number of survivors has dropped by over 1,000, but he doesn't dwell on it. Instead, he arranges for De Zhuang and the others to continue upgrading the polar huts and constructing other buildings. After that, he takes out a Twin Wolf Knight summoning scroll and uses it, instantly bringing forth a knight on a massive war wolf. The knight introduces himself as Assam, ready to serve. Axing immediately checks Assam's status panel to see what he's gained. He discovers that besides Assam, the wolf itself has its own level, a literal buy one, get one free deal from the summon. It's an incredible profit, to be honest. He nods and has the others apply ice armor, ice healing, and scale armor to Assam. Along with the Snake Clan Berserk, Assam now carries 4 permanent buffs, causing the knight to feel a sudden surge of power. Assam declares that Axing is the lord with the greatest power he has ever seen since the founding of his kingdom. With total devotion, he vows to offer his absolute loyalty to Axing from this moment forward. By helping Assam increase his strength, Axing sees the knight's loyalty rise immediately. With loyalty now at 80, he smiles with satisfaction. The power of eternity is certainly proving its worth. He then gives Assam his first assignment, an exploration mission toward the northeast of the camp. The knight is to mark any resource points or wild creatures he encounters until he reaches a 10-kilometer radius. Assam departs to follow his lord's orders, just as the gatherers' huts are upgraded to level 2. This allows for 8 gatherers in total, so Axing spends 15 units to summon more workers. He names the new arrivals Wu Zhuang, Lu Zhuang, Qi Zhuang, and Ba Zhuang, and begins assigning their duties. They are tasked with gathering stone and wood for construction. Afterward, he takes Mu Xue to the market area. He intends to sell some of his surplus supplies for more useful items, starting by listing the wolf meat. He specifies that he will only trade for equipment, weapons, or skill books. Naturally, the appearance of meat causes an immediate stir among the other survivors, and his private messages begin to overflow. Most of these people hope to trade their basic territory materials, such as wood or stone. A few even offer small amounts of iron. Axing, however, offers a kind warning about these basic resources. He notes that these are the foundation of survival and shouldn't be traded lightly. Some survivors listen and withdraw. Others insist on the trade, arguing that if they starve now, they won't be around for future development anyway. He doesn't refuse them, but since his wolf meat reserves are limited, he isn't looking for common stone or wood. He decides, however, that it would be wise to trade for enough iron to get started. His goal is to build a blacksmith shop, which will allow him to craft basic equipment for his people. Simple items like stone spears can be made easily, though more advanced gear will require specific blueprints. The problem is that most survivors currently have very little iron, 2 or 3 pieces at the most. Axing realizes that trading for only 2 pieces of iron is a losing deal, so he asks the system for a better way. He inquires if the wolf meat can be divided into smaller portions. The system confirms a single piece is 1,000 grams. It can be split into 10 smaller servings, with each portion weighing exactly 100 grams. He immediately divides the meat into 50 portions and updates the trade terms. 1 portion of meat for 2 pieces of iron. In an instant, a massive amount of resources flows in. We see him check his territory's stockpile with a satisfied nod. With these materials, he finally has enough to construct both the tailor shop and the blacksmith shop. While other survivors are still fumbling in the dark, his territory is already beginning to take a professional shape. His progress is remarkably fast, to say the least. Afterward, he takes a moment to teach Mu Xue some combat techniques. Suddenly, a system alert flashes. His territory member Assam is under attack. His heart sinks instantly at the news. Assam is already a level 10 knight. Paired with her twin wolves, she should be nearly invincible against common foes. An attack can only mean one thing. She has encountered a truly powerful enemy. Mu Xue sees the alert and looks worried. Seeing the fear in her eyes, he reassures her, noting that Assam is protected by 4 permanent status buffs. As long as she isn't killed in a single hit, her survival is almost guaranteed. A few minutes later, he regains his composure. He watches as Assam finally returns to the outskirts of the camp, looking battered and exhausted from her ordeal. He immediately grabs his Barrett rifle and rushes forward to ask what happened. Assam bows apologetically and begins to explain. About 3 kilometers from the camp, her team discovered a massive and formidable snow blizzard bear. The bear could actually discharge electricity. Neither she nor the wolves were a match for the beast's overwhelming power. If their lord hadn't granted them those stat boosts beforehand, they might not have made it back at all. She estimates that only a rank 2 knight would stand a chance. Hearing this, he restores their status and begins to think. He wonders if he should hunt the beast himself, or if leaving it alone would only lead to more trouble later. Hearing that only a rank 2 knight could defeat such a foe, Axing takes a moment to think before restoring their status. He then turns to Assam and tells her to lead him to the location of this snow blizzard bear. Having such a beast only 3 kilometers from the camp is, to be honest, enough to keep anyone awake at night. He decides he must observe its strength firsthand, feeling confident that his Barrett rifle gives him a significant edge. Against monsters below level 20, he essentially has no equal, and so, half an hour later, they set out. We see them arrive at a cave at the foot of a snow-capped mountain, where the system immediately issues a warning. The alert confirms they have reached the snow blizzard bear's lair. Assam asks if she should lure the beast out. She believes that with enough caution, escaping the creature shouldn't be a problem. He nods, and not long after, the very ground begins to tremble. A second later, a massive figure at least 8 meters tall emerges. A terrifying roar erupts from the cave, a sound so fierce it seems to darken the very air around them. This is the Snow Blizzard Bear, a level 15 rank 2 elite creature with over 4,000 health points. Its first skill is a Bear Palm Strike, which deals massive damage to any enemy with lower strength than its own. This attack carries a guaranteed knockback effect. Its second skill, Feral Roar, releases a terrifying wave of sound. It leaves any enemy within 30 meters stunned for 3 seconds, a death sentence in most cases, naturally. Its third skill is Lightning Slap, which summons the power of thunder to strike everyone within 20 meters. It deals 130% lightning damage and leaves the target paralyzed for a full second. Judging by these 3 skills alone, the bear's power is already approaching that of a level 20 monster. However, he doesn't panic. Instead, he calmly analyzes the situation, noting the creature's 4,000 health. With his Barrett, he calculates it will take at least 5 well-placed shots to take the beast down for good. He is currently 500 meters away, at the bear's top speed. He estimates he has only 10 seconds to act. It will take 10 seconds for the beast to reach him, and with the Barrett's 2-second firing interval, he has exactly enough time for 5 shots. He raises the rifle and fires a single, thunderous shot at the snow blizzard bear. In an instant, the massive creature is struck. As blood sprays, a terrifying damage indicator of 872 points appears, and the force of the impact causes the beast to lose its balance. The bear tumbles to the ground, but Axing doesn't stop there. He fires again, and this time, the damage is even more devastating. The number rises to a staggering 1,234 points, a critical hit. Having been struck twice in rapid succession, the bear is now truly enraged. Filled with a murderous intent toward him, the beast scrambles back to its feet and begins a desperate, heavy charge in his direction. He fires a third time to stop it in its tracks, but to his surprise, the bear actually dodges. He can't help but curse his own luck. He blames his own poor marksmanship for missing such a massive target. At this point, the snow blizzard bear still has 1,974 health remaining. Calculating the closing distance between them, he realizes the situation is becoming quite tense. He has time for only 2 more shots. Despite the looming danger, he remains unnaturally calm. He takes a breath, steadies his aim, and pulls the trigger once more. Another 893 points of damage flash across the screen. The bear is now only 100 meters away, and he is down to his final chance. This is it, the last shot he can possibly take before the beast reaches him. A terrifying 1,574 points of damage erupt from the snow blizzard bear's head as the final bullet finds its mark with perfect precision. Not only did the shot land, but it also triggered a headshot bonus. The system immediately chimes in with a notification of his success. He has successfully slain the level 15 snow blizzard bear. It was a difficult hunt, but the rewards are certainly worth the effort. He gains a base experience of 350, multiplied to a total of 1,400 points. A generous reward for such a dangerous encounter, wouldn't you say? His level jumps immediately to level 3. He is delighted. Jumping 2 levels at once is a rare stroke of fortune in this world. But the system isn't finished yet. For killing the bear, he receives a special trophy, a junior Heart of Strength. This Heart of Strength is an advancement item, allowing any survivor or territory member who has reached level 10 to evolve. It allows them to become a rank 2 being, which increases all of their attributes by a full 100%. A true game changer. Next, we see him receive 8 junior elemental crystals, rare stones brimming with raw elemental power. These can be used to construct magical buildings or as alchemy materials, and then a grand announcement follows. As the first survivor to slay an elite creature, he receives a first kill reward, a junior elemental arrow tower blueprint. He also gains an Icefield Druid recruitment scroll, while the system notes that Elena and Assam are watching. They are utterly awestruck by the sheer power he just displayed, their loyalty deepening as he turns toward them. With a calm smile, he tosses the junior Heart of Strength to Assam, who stares at the precious gift in disbelief. Assam asks if such a treasure can truly be his, and he simply nods, acknowledging the warrior's bravery and wit. He believes Assam is more than worthy of greater power, a gesture that leaves the man moved to tears. Assam vows to give his life for his lord, as the system confirms his heart has been deeply touched. His loyalty surges to 95%, a level of devotion where he would now gladly face death for his master. As Assam uses the power crystal, a sudden, heavy pressure begins to radiate from his body. In an instant, his presence reaches a terrifying new level, and the system provides a welcome update. His follower, Assam, has successfully evolved, doubling all of his attributes, a massive boost, to be sure. After checking Assam's new stats, he turns to Elena and tells her that if she performs well, her turn will come. He promises that once she reaches level 10, he will find a Heart of Strength to help her break through as well. Grateful for his generosity, Elena pledges her entire being to him, her loyalty rising to 85%. The system confirms she is deeply moved by his words, which, naturally, is exactly what a good leader wants to see. He smiles and turns his attention to the recruitment scroll, which allows him to summon an Icefield Druid. To his surprise, it summons a level 15 elite creature. That is quite a powerful ally to have this early on. It's an incredibly strong addition to his forces, and he still has that junior elemental arrow tower blueprint to consider. This blueprint allows him to build a defensive arrow tower with a range of 600 meters and an attack power of 213. With a firing interval of just 2.5 seconds, we can see this is clearly another devastating weapon for his arsenal. With over 200 points of attack power, a single arrow could almost instantly kill a weapon-type creature like Elena. Even Assam, before his recent evolution, would have struggled against such a range of 600 meters. He likely would have been shot down before even reaching the base of the tower. Next, he turns his attention to the bear's corpse. He chooses to dismantle it, instantly obtaining over 1,000 pieces of blue-quality bear meat. He also gathers items like bear skin and gallbladders, but what pleases him most is that the first time this meat is consumed, it can increase both strength and constitution by 2 points each. For those in the warrior class, that translates to 4 points of attack and 40 points of health, plus a few extra secondary stat boosts. Considering that food is currently what survivors need most, if he were to take this to the market for trade, He is certain it would cause a massive stir, a literal windfall of wealth. Having finished sorting the loot, he looks toward the cave. Assam steps forward and volunteers to head inside, first to scout the area for any remaining danger. He nods in approval, and a short while later, Assam returns to report that the interior is safe. However, there are a few unusual items inside. Feeling curious, he enters the cave to see for himself. There, we see a newborn white bear cub huddled in the shadows. It turns out to be a juvenile snowfield blast bear that already commands the power of lightning. He reaches out to pet it, but he is instantly shocked, losing a point of health. At that moment, the system provides a new notification. It has detected a tameable wild creature, a snowfield blast bear cub. The system asks if he wishes to tame and recruit it into his territory, noting that he must provide food for the creature. He will have to wait for it to grow before it gains its true combat potential, but he chooses to agree, successfully recruiting it. The system also prompts him to give the creature a name. After a moment of thought, he decides to call it Volibear. Liumu Shui happily scoops Volibear up into her arms. He is just about to warn her that this little guy can discharge electricity, but she only laughs, noting that she isn't being shocked at all. He is left completely speechless. It seems this cub is already choosing favorites, a classic move. Beside the bear's nest, we see an unlocked silver treasure chest. His breathing quickens instantly. In this world, treasure chests are ranked from lowest to highest, starting at bronze, then silver, gold, and finally the Bright Moon chest. The top-tier Bright Moon chests can even contain legendary equipment. Even a silver chest is a rare find. In his past life, while playing the game, he only managed to find one by chance after surviving for 10 days. Finding one now is a massive stroke of luck. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. He opens it and receives a skill book, Mark Robot, along with 1 pair of black iron bracers, 5 medical kits, 1 small resource pack, and 5 units of mithril. Looking at the skill book, he is immediately overjoyed. It turns out to be an early game divine skill for the cold iron mechanic, a truly priceless find. The skill book, Mark Robot, is an exclusive ability for the cold iron mechanic class. By consuming materials and energy, he can summon a Mark Robot that inherits the survivor's own stats. The robot boasts 120% of his attributes and lasts for a full 180 seconds. As for the equipment, it is a pair of bracers that increases attack range, perfect for his current needs. The small resource pack provides a set amount of stone, wood, and iron once it is used. Mithril, meanwhile, is a precious metal used for crafting high-level gear or buildings. After that, we return to the territory. He checks his supplies and finds them to be quite abundant. He then continues to organize the work, assigning De Zhuang and the others to construction and gathering before heading to the cabin with Liumu Shui. After helping her parents through their recent troubles, the bond between him and Liumu Shui has grown significantly, though things remain a bit shy for now. Deciding not to push things further, he takes a moment to calm his thoughts and heads over to the market to open the trading interface. He prepares to sell off a batch of supplies to prioritize the development of his territory. First, we see him check the world chat channel. As usual, it is filled with people complaining, though some are sharing guides and warnings about their recent encounters. They speak of a group of masked people who are incredibly brutal, warning others to stay away. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out in the chat. It seems Fong Long from the Three Heroes Association has begun selling food again, causing quite a stir among the survivors. He is offering 100 pieces of lean meat for either 100 units of wood or 50 stones, noting that equipment is limited. Some are excited and urge those with extra materials to trade quickly, while others complain that the prices are simply too high. He shakes his head, knowing the price is indeed steep. It is enough to drain an entire camp's resources. To be honest, it is a bit predatory. While the food can restore some satiety, the lack of materials will severely limit their future development, leading to a miserable situation later. He then decides to process his bear meat into small portions and lists them, clearly labeling them as meat that provides attribute bonuses. Naturally, the materials he asks for are much cheaper than Fong Long's. Word spreads quickly for everyone to check the market. People notice the attribute-boosting bear meat almost immediately after it is listed, and it becomes the center of attention. A massive crowd of onlookers gathers. A survivor named Yang Lin is so excited that he can hardly contain himself. He managed to trade 50 stones for a whole piece of bear meat, which is enough to boost the attributes of his entire family. Good heavens, this news sends the chat channel into a state of absolute frenzy as everyone realizes the value of the deal. Some people even go so far as to post the information about the bear meat onto the world channel for everyone to see. This leaves survivors who aren't in District 174 feeling incredibly envious of their luck, which, naturally, was to be expected. Meanwhile, his screen is flooded with a constant stream of transaction notifications. In just a few short minutes, the trades are complete. He has successfully harvested 5,400 units of wood, 3,200 stones, and 342 iron ores. In addition to the resources, we see he has acquired 43 basic elemental crystals, a green blueprint, and 20 secret seals. And to think, he only had to give up 215 pieces of bear meat to get all of this. Inside his backpack, he still has a full 1,000 pieces of meat left. He is overjoyed, knowing these materials are exactly what he needs. He can now upgrade the most vital structures in his camp, the Bonfire Spirit Bead Hut and the Polar Dweller Huts. He could even construct the powerful basic elemental arrow towers, which would massively boost his territory's defensive capabilities. He quickly calls over De Zhuang and the others to begin assigning tasks, stepping away from the market for a brief moment. However, the moment he stops trading the bear meat, the survivors in District 174 immediately fall into a state of panic. Some worry that he has completely sold out, while others deeply regret waiting for a price drop that never came. Seeing this, someone mocks them, calling them fools for expecting a discount on something as rare as this meat. Items that grant attribute bonuses are a hard currency at any time, and to be fair, Chao Xian's prices were quite reasonable. Compared to him, the prices set by Fong Long were practically a death sentence for most survivors. Buying from Fong Long once was enough to bankrupt a person. Unexpectedly, this comment draws an immediate response from Fong Long himself. He demands to know who is calling his meat expensive, claiming he only put his precious food up for trade to keep them from starving. He expresses his outrage that they would dare complain about the price after he supposedly tried to help them. The chat channel suddenly goes silent. Most people here are from Xiangjiang and know exactly who the Three Heroes Association are. They are a notorious gang, the kind of people you really don't want to cross. He tells everyone to stay in line. He arrogantly asks them if they've forgotten who the real boss of this entire region is. He declares that from now on, anyone who wants to trade in this area must first get his personal approval. He threatens them with consequences if they refuse, prompting someone to call him out for being far too overbearing. They point out that he sells his goods at a premium while trying to block others. He simply snorts, not denying it at all. He openly admits to their tyranny, asking the crowd if they really thought the Three Heroes Association was something to be trifled with. He warns them that his organization has hundreds of brothers scattered throughout this region, a fact that should give anyone pause. Since they are bound to cross paths eventually, he suggests they think very carefully about the consequences of their actions. One by one, other members of the Three Heroes Association jump into the chat to back Fong Long up, creating a wall of intimidation. The other survivors turn pale at the sight of this coordinated threat, and suddenly, no one dares to speak a word. We return to Chao Xian, who has finally finished assigning tasks, only to find Fong Long attempting to ban all other trades. He is momentarily stunned by the sheer audacity, but he simply lets out a cold laugh and tells everyone he was just away for a moment. He calmly announces that the trading will now continue exactly as before. Fong Long snaps back immediately, asking if he was stuttering and demanding that Chao Xian stop all transactions at once. He sneers at the young man, asking if he has somehow managed to never hear the fearsome name of the Three Heroes Association. Chao Xian is unimpressed, noting that this isn't Earth anymore, so there is really no point in acting like a neighborhood bully. He tells the others not to be afraid of these thugs and encourages them to keep trading for what they need. He reminds them that his supply of bear meat is limited, so it will be first come, first served. And then, he adds a small condition. The idiots from the Three Birds Association, as he calls them, are strictly forbidden from trading. He mocks them for still acting like lapdogs in a new world, suggesting they go beg their masters if they want something to eat. This comment is like poking a hornet's nest, and the Three Heroes Association immediately explodes into a frenzy of insults against him. Chao Xian, however, remains perfectly calm, quietly recording the names and IDs of every person currently cursing him. He systematically adds them to his trade blacklist, just as the rest of the survivors begin to realize what is happening. Seeing the bear meat back on the market, the crowd finds their courage and begins to voice their support for him in the public chat. Meanwhile, Fong Long is absolutely livid, especially after discovering that his own men were secretly trying to buy meat from Chao Xian. Unsurprisingly, every single one of them was rejected, but right then, Lu Mushua's father suddenly reached out to him. He claimed to know Chao Xian's background and wanted to cooperate, revealing that in his past life, the young man was just a lowly driver. Fong Long felt an immediate sense of relief, thinking that a bottom feeder from the old world had no real chance of rising up here. He truly believed the boy was delusional for thinking he could change his fate, and he promptly issued an order to every member of the Three Heroes Association. Their new mission was simple. They had to find the exact location of Chao Xian's camp. While back at the base, our protagonist was being flooded with trade notifications. After selling 500 pieces of high-quality bear meat, he announced to the crowd that his personal stock was finally running low. He explained that large-scale trading would have to stop, though he left the door open for those who had found something truly interesting. He told them that if they possessed blueprints, equipment, or skill books, they could message him privately and he would still be willing to buy. This statement sparked a fresh wave of hope in the hearts of the survivors who had missed out on the initial feast. We see Chao Xian turn his attention back to his territory's resource reserves to check his progress. To be honest, the sheer volume of materials he had managed to accumulate had reached a truly staggering level. It was a hoard that would have normally taken him 20 days of constant grinding back when he played this as a mobile game. At that moment, Lu Mushua felt the need to offer a word of caution, calling out to him as Ixi. She warned him that she had dealt with Fong Long before and knew exactly what kind of man he was. She described him as a sinister, treacherous person who wouldn't hesitate to use the most ruthless methods to get what he wanted. She urged him to be careful, and while he nodded in agreement, deep down, he wasn't worried in the slightest. He knew that at this stage, player conflict was limited to finding an enemy's camp and launching a direct assault. But since most survivors were still only level 1 or 2, the idea of them trekking dozens of kilometers through the wilderness was practically impossible. The chances of them traveling 100 kilometers just to cause him trouble were slim, and even if they were brave enough to try, they would have to face a level 5 Elena and his level 10 Twin Wolf Knights, which would be a very short fight indeed. He knew he could crush them in a completely one-sided slaughter, especially since he still had an unsummoned Icefield Druid waiting in reserve. Most importantly, we see that he was about to build a devastating weapon, the basic Elemental Arrow Tower. At that point, it wouldn't matter if Feng Long brought the entire Three Heroes Association. They would simply be delivering themselves as targets. However, the issue weighing on his mind was actually a lack of manpower, as he now possessed a massive mountain of resources. With only 8 base members available to work, even if they labored around the clock, it simply wasn't enough. They couldn't possibly convert all those materials into construction fast enough, and to him, letting resources sit idle was a terrible waste. But just as he was beginning to worry, Assam suddenly returned from his scouting mission with an unexpected surprise. To our astonishment, he had brought 3 women back with him, calling out to his lord that he had something to report. Assam explained that these women were refugees who had managed to escape from a place called Frozen City. Frozen City was a town located thousands of kilometers away, but it had recently been overrun and destroyed by the White Walker army. These survivors had barely escaped with their lives, only to cross paths with a dangerous cult during their long journey. Fortunately, Assam had arrived just in time to rescue them, though they were now left entirely homeless and without hope. Feeling a sense of pity, Assam suggested to Chao Xian that their territory was in desperate need of more hands to help. The women pleaded with the Lord to take them in, begging for a place to stay now that they had nowhere else to go. They promised to give him their absolute loyalty, to which he simply asked if they knew how to cook. When they nodded eagerly, he decided that the task of preparing meals would be their new responsibility from now on. He immediately sent out the recruitment offers, and the system promptly notified him that the process was a success. Moli, Yu Jingxiang, and Lambashi officially joined the territory, increasing the total population by 3. To make management a bit easier, he decided to rename them Dahua, Erhua, and Sanhua, which is one way to handle paperwork, I suppose. Their stats were basic level 1 attributes, though he noticed their hunger levels were dangerously low and needed immediate attention. He told them to go and cook something for themselves first, as he hadn't yet managed to build a proper cafeteria. The stove was located inside the Lord's cabin, and as they left, he began thinking about these newly recruited residents. He realized he would need to build small shelters for them to rest in once night fell. Beyond that, a dedicated dining hall was necessary, but he knew that constructing or upgrading buildings took a great deal of time. Watching the 8 base members working tirelessly, he couldn't help but sigh at the slow progress. It was clear that his workforce was still far too small, and he began reflecting on his past gaming experiences for a solution. Since this world was inhabited by indigenous people, he knew there were typically 4 ways to recruit more hands. The first was expanding the territory's scale to naturally attract nearby tribes or wandering refugees to join him. The second was sending scouts like Assam to wander the wilderness, where there was always a chance of finding survivors. Thirdly, one could visit the taverns in cities or towns and pay a fee to hire NPCs with specialized skills. And the fourth option, of course, was simply to launch a war and force nearby tribes into submission. To be honest, none of these methods seemed quite right for his current situation. But just as he was worrying about his lack of manpower, Dahua and the others finished their meal and brought him some timely news. Dahua explained that they had actually escaped from a camp run by a group of cruel and violent marauders. Many of their companions were still being held captive there, and she hoped the Lord might be willing to save them. This was exactly what he needed, a perfect opportunity to increase his population while doing a bit of hero work. He asked her how many marauders there were and what kind of strength they possessed. Dahua estimated there were about 20 or 30 of them, most of whom felt roughly as strong as the Lord himself. There were also 2 squad leaders whose power seemed slightly greater than that of the Naga lady standing nearby. And finally, she warned him that there was a captain who was the strongest of them all. The captain's strength was roughly equal to Assam's twin wolf aura, which meant he was facing a single level 10 marauder. There were 2 others above level 5, plus 20 more below that, but he had the newly advanced Assam on his side. He also had an unsummoned level 15 elite frost druid, so he felt certain that victory was well within his reach. Based on his gaming experience, these marauders likely had some hidden treasures, and the thought alone was enough to stir his interest. After confirming the location of the camp, he immediately began preparing for the upcoming battle. First, he turned his attention to the 2 skill books and equipment he had acquired the day before, starting with the Ice Bolt spell. This skill could condense up to 3 ice spikes, dealing magic damage equal to 80% of the user's spirit attribute. It even carried a 30% chance to freeze the enemy for a second, alongside the second skill book, Aurora Blessing. This blessing infused a weapon with the power of the Aurora, allowing for devastating effects during close-quarters combat. It dealt additional beam damage equal to 80% of the spirit value with every strike. The effect lasted for 60 seconds. He decided to learn Ice Bolt himself while giving the Aurora Blessing to Lu Muxue. After that, he finally used the Frost Druid recruitment scroll to bring his new elite ally into the world. In an instant, a heavy pressure filled the air as the Guardian, Andrew, appeared and pledged to follow the guidance of nature. Checking Andrew's status panel, we see that he possessed a powerful transformation skill called Great Bear Form. By transforming into a Frost Great Bear, all of his attributes would be boosted by a significant 30%. He would also gain the skills Wild Roar and Fierce Assault, with the bear form lasting for a full 60 seconds. The cooldown was 3 minutes, and while the Lord nodded in satisfaction, he noticed something slightly concerning. Andrew only had a loyalty rating of 63, and there was a distinct coldness in the way the druid looked at him. He realized his own strength was still too low, making this powerful new recruit a bit reluctant to follow his lead. And Andrew truly felt that way. A weak lord simply couldn't command his full loyalty and respect just yet. But he simply smiled and told Andrew that, as one of his subjects, the druid would soon receive a divine blessing. Then, while Andrew watched in stunned silence, he began to cast ice healing and ice armor spells upon him. He added several of Elena's blessing skills to the mix, and then, using his eternal power, he did something remarkable. He made every single one of those buffs permanent, allowing Andrew to feel his strength rising indefinitely. Andrew was utterly shocked, asking his lord what kind of incredible blessing could produce such an effect. He felt more powerful than ever, and was told this was simply a reward for his future loyalty. Only his true subjects could enjoy such gifts, a statement that left the druid looking at his lord with new eyes. Andrew bowed, admitting he had never seen such power in his life and offering his heartfelt thanks for the blessing. A system notification appeared, confirming that by helping Andrew increase his strength, his loyalty had significantly improved. His loyalty now sat at 74. With a satisfied smile, he prepared to lead his team toward the Marauder camp. Suddenly, a new system announcement rang out, calling for the attention of every survivor in this frozen world. They had survived the second day of the Ice Age and had finally adapted to the rhythm of this harsh new reality. Because of this, the level rankings were about to be officially opened to everyone. The first 100 survivors in each region to reach level 10 would be eligible for special ranking rewards. He took a quick look at the prizes, noting that the rewards from 100th place down to 4th were quite standard. They mostly consisted of food and basic resources, but the top 3 spots were on an entirely different level. Those winners would receive Tier 2 creature recruitment scrolls and even rare blue-grade equipment. However, it was the reward for first place that truly made his breath catch in his throat. The top survivor would receive a Tier 2 boss-level recruitment scroll, a prize of immense value in this world. After all, whether recruited or found in the wild, every creature is strictly ranked by their innate potential and quality. We learned that these qualities represent a creature's raw strength and their potential for growth. The ranks range from common and elite to boss, chieftain, and finally commander. The higher the quality, the better. With every level gained, their attributes increase significantly. Take an elite creature, for example. Its base stats are naturally 30% stronger than a common creature, and the gap only grows from there. The reward for first place actually skips the boss tier entirely, offering a chieftain-level recruitment scroll. That is a terrifying prospect, and in that moment, he decided he would give everything to win. He aimed for that top prize, though he knew his rival Fong Long and other factions likely had the same idea. However, the system indicated it would be some time before the rankings were officially published. Suppressing his excitement, he led his team toward the Marauder camp, and they soon arrived at the coordinates. A system alert chimed, warning them they had entered a special zone where the danger level was extreme. He didn't hesitate for a second. He knew the system's assessment was based on his personal strength alone. It hadn't accounted for his powerful followers, so he ordered Andrew and Assam to lead the charge. Suddenly, a sharp cry rang out as dozens of marauders armed with long spears began to swarm. They emerged from their tents in a frenzy, but he simply took a quick glance at their status panels. They were only level 3 or 4, hardly a threat, and then we see Andrew dive into the crowd. With a single swipe of his claws, massive damage numbers appeared as the system notifications began to flood in. His subject, Andrew, had slain a marauder, earning 40 points of experience for the effort. The combatants Lu Muxue and Chao Xing, along with Elena, each received a half share of 20 points. Both he and Lu Muxue were surprised. They hadn't even joined the fight, yet they were gaining experience. But he quickly realized the reason. They had both placed powerful buffs on Andrew and the others. Because of this, when Andrew kills a monster, the system considers both of them as participants, granting them a share of the experience. Once he realized this, he couldn't help but think how incredibly powerful this mechanic was. After all, it changed everything. As long as he recruited enough powerful followers, he could simply send them all out into the field. He could essentially level up while sitting comfortably back at his territory, and more importantly, this meant one thing. His and Lu Mushua's chances of securing the ranking rewards had just increased significantly while back on the battlefield. The Marauders' desperate attacks were only dealing a measly single point of damage to Andrew and his companions. To make matters worse for the enemy, green healing numbers constantly floated above Andrew's head, leaving the Marauders utterly stunned. They couldn't even deal damage faster than he could recover, which, to be honest, is a rather hopeless way to fight a war. Suddenly, a figure burst out from the center of the camp. It was the Marauder captain, and he quickly checked the man's panel. The captain possessed a greased feet skill that increased movement speed when fleeing, so he immediately alerted Andrew and the others. He shouted that the man was the captain and not to let him escape, though the captain was already planning his retreat. Hearing his voice, the captain tried to bolt, but Andrew let out a thunderous roar and transformed into a massive great bear. With a powerful sprint, Andrew caught up to the captain and delivered a crushing blow, killing him instantly. A system notification flashed, granting him 150 experience points and pushing his level up to 4. The system also informed him that he had destroyed a Marauder camp, earning 50 points of territory prestige. Because he had completed a high-difficulty subjugation, the system evaluated his performance and decided to grant a special bonus. He received an additional reward, a recruitment scroll for a Phantom Assassin. This scroll could summon a level 20 elite Phantom Assassin, a prospect that left him feeling absolutely ecstatic. It was an elite assassin even stronger than Andrew, and with that in mind, he stepped forward to collect the spoils of war. He gathered several Marauder masks, a Tier 1 soldier training manual, and a handful of coins for his trouble. Among the loot, the Marauder mask was a piece of equipment that increased spirit, alongside a Tier 1 soldier training manual. This manual allowed him to train ordinary people within his territory into capable Tier 1 soldiers with actual combat power. The coins were the common currency of this continent, which could be used throughout the various towns of this world. They were useful for buying supplies or recruiting followers. Meanwhile, we see him entering the Marauders' tents to investigate. The first tent contained a bloody sacrificial scene that nearly made him lose his lunch. It was truly a gruesome sight. It seemed these Marauders were nothing more than lunatics. However, in the other tents, the findings were much more practical. He obtained a good amount of coins, food, and supplies. Just then, Andrew informed him that he had found something on the captain. It was a strange item, a goblin treasury key. To be honest, such things are rarely found in the hands of common bandits. Holding this key allowed one to travel to specific coordinates to open a goblin vault, though the system issued a warning. The area could hide special dangers, so he was advised to proceed with caution. He took a quick look at the details. Although the Goblin Wing race was considered weak, they were exceptionally skilled at digging and finding hidden treasures. Because of this, goblin treasuries often contained quite a few rare and precious items that any adventurer would covet. However, the coordinates were over 40 kilometers away, which was a bit too much for his current movement capabilities. He decided to save that for another day and move to the final tent, where the group of imprisoned refugees was being held. He scanned the names of the captives, but when he reached the very last one, he froze in complete disbelief. The survivor was named Tong Chu Chu, currently level 1, and she was actually a human from Blue Star, just like him. Lu Mushua immediately stepped forward to comfort her, and we learned that Tong Chu Chu had gone out with her father to find food. Unfortunately, they were ambushed by the Marauders and captured. As for Tong Chu Chu's father, the news was far more grim. He had been taken away by the Marauders the previous night and never returned. Tong Chu Chu finished her story, weeping uncontrollably. He could only let out a heavy sigh. After all, during the attack on the Marauder camp, they had seen the reality of the situation. We have already seen many evil altars piled high with corpses, and it was likely that Tong Chu Chu's father was among those unfortunate victims. Lu Mushua looked at him and asked if they could take Tong Chu Chu back to their camp. He nodded in agreement. Since the camp was finally getting on the right track, one more mouth to feed was no trouble at all. Besides, this young girl was a fellow survivor, and she might even be able to help out in the future. Learning that he was a powerful lord, Tong Chu Chu looked at him with a mix of fear and curiosity in her eyes. She then tentatively asked if her mother could come along too, as she was still all alone back at their original camp. This request, however, left him feeling quite conflicted. Human survivors, as we know, are a complicated matter. Unlike the indigenous residents, they don't always remain loyal to a lord. He was willing to take the girl, largely because she had no combat power and posed no threat. But when it came to adults, things were never that simple. So he opened the system interface to ask how he could bring other survivors into his territory. He discovered there were two ways. The first was to invite them as a co-lord, sharing building permissions and resources. The second option, which was far more practical, was to recruit them as subjects. This gave them basic residency and construction rights, but strictly prohibited them from attacking friendly units. Seeing this second option, his mind was made up. By recruiting them as subjects, he wouldn't have to worry about anyone causing internal damage to his territory. This suited his requirements perfectly. He then asked Tong Chu Chu for her camp's location, noting that the final choice would ultimately depend on her mother's own wishes. Hearing this, Tong Chu Chu thanked him profusely. She promised she would remember his kindness for the rest of her life, a heavy promise for such a small girl. He then turned to the other indigenous residents in the tent, asking if they happened to know Molly and Sapphire, the ones previously rescued by Assam. He soon learned that they were indeed companions. He nodded, explaining to the group that the people who had sent for help were already residents of his territory. Since their companions were the ones who led him here to save them, he asked if they were also willing to join his lands. Upon learning that the marauders outside had all been dealt with, they immediately and respectfully agreed to join him. In total, he recruited 6 new people, 3 men and 3 women, though their original names were a bit foreign for his liking. To keep things simple, he renamed the men Chao Yi, Chao Air, and Chao San, while the women became Sihua, Wuhua, and Luhua. Among them, Chao Yi and Sihua possessed the junior speech-making talent, which was more useful than it sounded. They could deliver speeches to soothe the emotions of the common people, while Sihua also had a natural talent for junior cooking. Any food she prepared would provide an additional 20% boost to hydration, a vital bonus in this world. His eyes lit up at this discovery. It was a pleasant and quite unexpected surprise. While searching the camp, he also stumbled upon a marauder's storage chest tucked away in a quiet corner. After opening it, he obtained a good amount of white bread, wheat seeds, and even some fresh milk. The chest also contained copper and other metals, and he noted that the wheat seeds could be planted in tilled soil. This was a significant find, as it meant he would finally have a stable and permanent source of food. As for the copper, he knew it was a highly important metal in this strange and frozen world. Large quantities of it would be required to build snow robots or even more advanced machines of war. Furthermore, he discovered a letter marked as a special item, a message from the Church of Light. He opened it to read a message addressed to all believers, stating that the Lord had sent down a divine revelation. It announced that the seed of the old world was about to appear and they must prepare for its arrival. To mark the occasion, a blood sacrifice operation would soon begin, calling all followers near the Ice Crystal Kingdom. They were instructed to gather at a base near specific coordinates once their numbers reached a certain scale. The letter revealed a chilling plan. They intended to launch a full-scale attack on the city of Lake Doran. Their goal was to offer the entire town's voices to the seed of the old world, and the system flagged this letter as a quest item. We see that he had a choice. He could deliver this letter to Lake Doran to expose the Church of Light's conspiracy in advance. After reading the contents, he frowned, surprised that these marauders actually had the audacity to plot against a fortified city. It was truly a madness of the highest order, and as for the system's suggestion to deliver the message, he honestly had no idea where this Lake Doran was even located. He then checked the coordinates of the marauder gathering point mentioned in the letter to see how close the danger was. He breathed a sigh of relief upon finding it was over 200 kilometers away. Surely, the chaos wouldn't reach him there. After burning the marauder camp to the ground, he and his group traveled back toward Tong Chuchu's bonfire camp. Upon arriving, he intended to follow Chuchu inside, but a system notification suddenly blocked his path. It informed him that during the novice protection period, entering another survivor's camp was forbidden, so he was forced to wait outside. A moment later, a tall woman with an air of mature elegance stepped out from the camp's interior. Her name was Xia Yani, and seeing such a large group of people gathered outside her territory, she visibly trembled with fear. Fortunately, Chuchu immediately stepped in to explain, recounting how he and his men had just saved her life. With tears in her eyes, Yani thanked him profusely and even tried to pull Chuchu down to kneel in gratitude. He quickly stopped her, telling the lady there was no need for such formalities, as Chuchu had likely already mentioned his need for help. He invited them to join his territory and help build a future together, explaining that in exchange for their labor, he would guarantee their safety and provide them with food, a fair trade in such a harsh world. Wouldn't you agree? Yani hesitated for only a brief moment before nodding her consent, and after he sent the recruitment invites, the system chimed in again. It notified him that the camp was now in an ownerless state and asked if he wished to occupy it. He naturally clicked confirm. He obtained another relic chest from the former lord, Tong Guangrong, but upon opening it, he found only 10 meager pieces of wood, along with 2 pieces of rat meat. These were the territory's final resources. It's safe to say that if he hadn't arrived, the 2 women would have either starved within 2 days or frozen to death once their wood ran out. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening, as he realized this world is as full of danger as it is of opportunity. He knew he had to expand his strength and territory quickly, for he had no intention of letting his own storage chest become a relic. By the time they returned to his territory, the sky was already darkening, and Dahua, seeing those familiar faces, let out a cry of joy and rushed forward to exchange stories of survival with her companions. Dazhuang also stepped forward to report that the bonfire had been successfully upgraded, calling him Lord with newfound respect. He noted that the Lord's cabin was also being upgraded ahead of schedule, and he turned his gaze toward the camp's central fire. The bonfire had now reached level 5, which meant its warmth could cover a radius of 160 meters. It raised the temperature by 10 to 20 degrees Celsius, and under the steady heat of the flames, the ground previously buried under ice and snow began to reveal itself once more. Only on this cleared ground could they construct more buildings or plant crops, making the bonfire's level the true heart of the camp. The bonfire essentially dictates the size of one's territory. Eventually, it could even evolve into a massive energy tower. Such a tower could heat an entire city, allowing survivors to build a true civilization from the ashes of the old world. He offered a brief word of praise, acknowledging that they were making good progress toward that ambitious goal. He then instructed Da Zhuang to take Wu Zhuang and Liu Zhuang to gather more resources, specifically focusing on the coal mine. An upgraded bonfire consumes a vast amount of coal, and we see that maintaining the camp's warmth was now his top priority. Next, he called Erzwang over and tasked him, along with Qi Zhuang and Baz Huang, with a new set of orders. They were to hurry and build more small shelters and a cafeteria, aiming to finish everything before the sun fully disappeared. He wanted to ensure the new members had a place to eat and sleep, while as for the remaining San Zhuang and Si Zhuang, he instructed them to focus solely on constructing a basic elemental tower before the darkness fully set in. By this time, the group of newly joined humans had finished exchanging their stories and getting settled. As they watched the laborers working in the camp, the elder among them, Chao Yi, felt a flicker of hope in his eyes. Leading the other refugees forward, Chao Yi approached him and addressed him formally as Lord. He asked for tasks to be assigned, but the Lord told them not to rush, knowing they hadn't eaten in days. He insisted they fill their stomachs before starting any work, causing the new subjects to look at one another in silence. We see surprise and relief reflected in their eyes, as it seemed this was their very first time encountering such a considerate ruler, though, to be honest, with no cafeteria yet, they would have to make do with bread. Lu Muxue immediately took a dozen loaves from the territory's resources and distributed them to the newcomers. Each person received 2 pieces, and we can see the deep gratitude shining in the eyes of Chao, Yi, and Sihua. Their loyalty surged significantly in that moment, while nearby, Tong Chuchu and Xia Yani watched the scene unfold. They stared at the white bread in the villagers' hands and swallowed hard, having been hungry for quite some time. Their longing for food was undeniable, so he pulled 4 more pieces of bread from the storage. He handed them to Xia Yani, telling her to eat. She bowed her head slightly and offered her sincere thanks. He then turned his attention back to Chao Yi, placing the group he brought under his direct command. Their upcoming tasks involved continuing the bonfire upgrades and gathering essential resources like wood and stone. He noted that once they had extra hands available, they should assist Da Zhuang and the others with the labor. After Chao Yi nodded in agreement, he handed the precious wheat seeds over to Dahua. He told her to find a suitable spot near the territory to reclaim the land and begin planting the wheat. Dahua marveled at the seeds, noting they were of the highest quality and would surely produce an excellent harvest. She promised to complete the task, while he looked out over the bustling territory with a sense of pride. He nodded in satisfaction, watching how a simple small bonfire had gradually grown to include so many subjects. With more buildings rising every hour, he was beginning to truly understand the simple joy of building from the ground up. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him, and he asked the group if anyone among them knew how to sew clothes. The wolf skins they had acquired earlier remained unprocessed, meaning they weren't providing much warmth for him or Lu Muxue. Now that the tailor shop was finally built, he needed someone with the right skills to step inside and get to work. Having a skilled tailor would significantly speed up production, but the subjects simply looked at one another and shook their heads. Just then, Xia Yani spoke up, admitting that she used to do handicraft work back home to help support her family. Tong Chuchu chimed in as well, proudly adding that her mother's craftsmanship was excellent and her clothes were always beautiful. He nodded and handed the wolf skins to Xia Yani, asking her to transform these 2 pelts into proper garments. He suggested using any leftover scraps to make hats or gloves. Waste not, want not, as they say. She assured him the quality of the fur was superb and promised to have them ready by tomorrow, which he accepted with a nod. Relieved, Xia Yani took her daughter by the hand, and they made their way into the warmth of the tailor shop. By now, the sky was bruising purple as night prepared to fall. In this world, darkness claimed more than half of every day. With less than 10 hours of daylight available, he and Lu Muxue decided it was time to retreat to the manor to rest. And so, the second day for all of humanity in this strange new world was drawing to a close. Driven by the competitive pressure of the level rankings, many survivors had finally summoned the courage to venture into the snow. Whether huddled with family or wandering alone, they were all cautiously exploring the areas surrounding their camps. Most were finding small successes, but in a distant corner of District 174, something else was brewing. We see Fong Long, clutching a common black iron sword, as he slashes through a wild boar with a single, decisive strike. Immediately after, a brilliant white light of leveling up envelopes him, a sight that, to be honest, was quite overdue. He felt a surge of relief at finally reaching level 3 before total darkness fell, considering he had been hunting since the rankings opened. He had spent the entire day tracking down isolated, low-level beasts, convinced that no one could possibly be moving faster than him. Elsewhere, we find a middle-aged man with a rugged, scarred face, drawing a sandalwood longbow until the string is pulled taut. With a sharp release, his arrow flies true, instantly taking down a stray roe deer wandering through the snow. This man is none other than Zhou Bo, the leader of the Heavenly Sword Society, and he clearly knows his way around a weapon. Just then, Zhou Bo received a message from one of his subordinates, who addressed him with a tone of urgent respect. The subordinate reported that they had mapped out the coordinates of all the members, noting that several were within 30 kilometers of his camp. Two of their brothers were currently developing their own camps in that area, preparing for the journey ahead. Uncle Zhou wore a confident smile as he promised that everyone should be able to reach the location by tomorrow. Excellent, the leader replied. Once those two brothers arrived, they could finally form a proper team to hunt monsters. Their leveling efficiency would skyrocket, and when that happened, well, people like Fong Long and Wu Xinghu would finally be crushed under his boots. Meanwhile, as the sun began to set, a massive wave of survivors ended their day of exploration and trickled back into the camp. The chat channels gradually flickered to life with activity. Many were beginning to realize something important. It turned out that by teaming up with family members, dealing with low-level monsters wasn't actually that difficult. Some had already secured a decent supply of food. Others, however, complained that they hadn't even made it far from the gates before running into high-level frost goblins. They stood no chance. It was, to put it mildly, a stroke of terrible luck. And then, a countdown appeared. The system announced that the level rankings were officially being calculated. The system announced that in 3 minutes, the survivor level rankings for each district would be revealed. Everyone would be able to check their own level and relative standing as the list refreshed in real time. Suddenly, everyone's spirits lifted, and they couldn't help but wonder who the highest level player might be. Someone suggested it had to be Wu Xinghu, the leader of the Tiger Hall, since he had already reached level 3. Others immediately brought up Zhou Bo and Fong Long, noting that they were also level 3, a crowded top indeed. While many were still reeling from the shock, the system notification flashed. The level rankings were now complete. However, the names at the top of the list were about to defy everyone's expectations. In District 174, the first place belonged to Chao Xing, sitting at level 4 with 1% progress. Second place was held by Wu Xinghu at level 3 and 25%. Third place went to Zhou Bo at level 3 and 14%. As people stared at this list, the entire chat channel for District 174 fell into a momentary, stunned silence. Then, a tidal wave of messages flooded the screen. The top spot actually belonged to the powerhouse, Chao Xing. He truly was the man who killed the bear. Meanwhile, Fong Long and Zhou Bo looked absolutely humiliated. Fong Long cursed under his breath, wondering how on earth that kid had managed to take first place. On the other side, a curious smile played across Zhou Bo's face. This was getting interesting. He had initially thought the boy was just lucky and would be finished after offending Fong Long. Now it seemed he actually had some skill. Zhou Bo opened his friend list and messaged a subordinate. He ordered them to use their network to investigate this Chao Xing's background. Meanwhile, inside the small hut, Lu Muxua looked at Chao Xing with excitement in her eyes, exclaiming that he was officially number 1. He simply smiled, telling her they were impressive, but they would need to keep working hard tomorrow. He told her they should see if they could secure a top 10 reward for her as well. Early the next morning, a system message arrived. The Junior Elemental Sword Tower had been successfully constructed, and there, right at the edge of the camp's bonfire, a 15-meter-high hexagonal tower had appeared. If any enemy dared to approach within 600 meters of the camp, this tower would automatically launch an attack. It was incredibly powerful. At that moment, a knock sounded at the door. Sihua walked in with a smile, carrying a bowl of bear gall soup and a portion of roasted bear meat. She explained that both ingredients had been prepared exactly as he requested the day before. His eyes lit up at the sight. The bear gall could directly increase health by 200 points, while the meat added 2 points to both strength and constitution. These were significant upgrades, to be sure. After taking a bite of the bear meat, the system immediately notified him, confirming his strength and constitution had increased by 2. As for the bear gall, things were a bit strange at first. He took several bites without any notification of an attribute boost. It wasn't until he had finished half of it that the system chimed in. The consumption of the bear gall was successful, but his maximum health had only increased by 2 points. It turned out he had to eat half the gall to get the boost. This meant the remaining half could likely provide one more upgrade. He decided to give the rest to Lu Muxua. Unfortunately, though, this type of food only provides a benefit the very first time it is consumed. Just then, the system announcement rang out again. It congratulated the survivors for making it through the 3rd night of the frozen era. The remaining time for the novice protection period was now 2 days and 22 hours. Furthermore, a light snowfall was expected tonight, with temperatures dropping to a bone-chilling minus 70 degrees Celsius. The system warned them to stay warm. Muxua looked at him and asked if it was really going to snow tonight. He confirmed that it would. However, he felt relieved that it wasn't a full-blown blizzard. With the current facilities in their territory, he was confident they could endure the cold and make it through. And so, we see him push open the heavy doors of the Lord's Manor, where the original settlers and the new arrivals were already waiting for him. As soon as he appeared, they greeted him in unison, wishing their lord a good morning. They eagerly asked for their tasks for the day, their enthusiasm practically radiating from them. Before this, they had lived lives of constant hunger and uncertainty, yet after only one day in his territory, they could already sense the bright future ahead. Naturally, they were determined to cherish this opportunity. He nodded in approval, instructing them to continue the work he had assigned the previous day. Their goal was to gather more resources to upgrade the central bonfire and the Lord's Manor itself. He encouraged them to build a prosperous territory together, and they responded with a disciplined salute. At that moment, Xia Yani and Tong Chu stepped forward, carefully carrying a set of thick, heavy clothing. Xia Yani spoke tentatively, announcing that the clothes were finished. To be honest, as a modern woman, she still seemed a bit uncomfortable using such formal titles. He thanked her and took the garments. What she had produced was a finely sewn wolf fur coat paired with a matching wolf fur hat. While these items didn't provide any magical attribute boosts, they were excellent for warding off the biting cold. He noticed the dark circles under Xia Yani's eyes and realized she must have stayed up all night working. In appreciation, he handed her 2 portions of bear meat and a bottle of fresh milk. She was stunned, asking if such precious food was truly for her. He told her to use it to nourish young Chu. Xia Yani's eyes grew red with emotion as she nodded solemnly, offering her thanks over and over again. Little Tong Chu also chimed in with a joyful thank you. With the morning task settled, he called Assam over. He asked if she had discovered anything else during her scouting mission the day before, besides rescuing the others. Assam handed him a simple map of the nearby resources and explained that beyond the ordinary materials, she had also discovered a mine, though it had unfortunately already been occupied by a pack of salt rat men. Furthermore, she mentioned hearing the distant roar of machinery nearby, a detail that immediately caught his attention. This suggested the mine might contain technological artifacts, so he asked about the true strength of these salt rat men. Assam explained that while she hadn't ventured inside to scout, salt rat men were generally considered low-level creatures. Most were only at the first rank, with only the occasional second or third rank individual appearing among them. After hearing this, he already had a plan in mind. Since the mine wasn't far from the territory, he was quite curious. And so, we see their objective for the day take shape. They would go and explore this salt rat man mine. The goal was to raise both his and Mu Shue's levels, but before setting out, he had one more thing to do. He intended to use the Phantom Assassin recruitment voucher to further bolster the strength of his small team. This particular voucher could summon a Phantom Assassin with the power of a level 20 elite. When the system asked if he wished to proceed, he clicked confirm without a second thought. Immediately, a mass of black mist appeared before him, expanding with startling speed. In just a few seconds, the dark shroud had completely enveloped the entire camp. Within the gloom, a faint figure could be seen moving, though it gave off no presence or aura whatsoever. Yet, it still gave him a lingering sense of lethal danger. A moment later, the mist finally began to dissipate. A woman emerged from the shadows, draped in a black cloak and wearing form-fitting black leather armor. A pitch-black helmet rested upon her head, concealing more than half of her face from view. All that could be seen beneath her pale, bluish skin were her slightly red lips as she slowly began to speak. She declared that the Shadow Sanctuary required protection and that the Phantom Assassin Shala was reporting for duty. He nodded, welcoming Shala to the group, though the assassin herself offered no visible reaction to his greeting. Mu Shue also spoke up softly, welcoming Shala, who offered a brief word of thanks in return. Shala added that she was at the service of such a beautiful lady, showing a sudden flash of politeness. He couldn't help but roll his eyes at this blatant favoritism, though, to be honest, he was quite used to it by now. New recruits were often cold at first, so he simply moved on to examine Shala's specific attributes. We see that Shala possessed 3 distinct skills, the first being Shadowless Form, which allowed her to blur her physical shape. This skill hid her presence entirely and, while in a state of stealth, increased her evasion probability by 30%. It also boosted her movement speed by 20% for 5 minutes, while her second skill was called Multiple Deliverance. This gave her a 30% chance to deal double damage and a 15% chance to do even more. Specifically, that 15% chance dealt over 300% damage, with a rare 5% chance for a massive strike. That ultimate strike dealt 432% damage, followed by her third skill, Shadow Limbs. This talent added another 15% to her evasion while hidden, and she even possessed a unique assassin bond. If the team had 3 or more assassins, the trigger rate for Multiple Deliverance would increase by 5%. And if that number reached 10, the probability would jump by a full 10%, a staggering prospect, really. He couldn't hide his astonishment as he realized Shala's attack power was already sitting at nearly 700. A single critical hit from her blade would rival a shot from a Barrett sniper rifle, especially if her second skill triggered. The resulting damage would be terrifying, and that was before considering the boost from his own permanent talent. With his help, Shala could reach an entirely different level, so he looked at her with newfound interest. He asked her if she was willing to accept the special blessing effect he was about to bestow upon her. Shala didn't answer immediately, appearing somewhat hesitant because she didn't yet fully trust her new lord. Deep down, she doubted that someone with his seemingly weak strength could actually provide any meaningful power at all. After thinking it over for a moment, she finally gave a slow nod, and without another word being necessary, Elena immediately cast the Snakeman Berserk and Scale armor buffs upon her, causing Shala's body to tremble. She could clearly feel the immense power surging through her, and before she could even speak, he cast Soldier's Armor. This was followed quickly by Mu Shui's Aurora Blessing, adding yet another layer of protection. After 5 permanent buffs were applied in rapid succession, Shala found herself frozen in place, completely stunned. Her shoulders were trembling slightly, as someone who had spent her life as an assassin performing dangerous missions. Shala knew better than anyone just how terrifyingly powerful these permanent status effects truly were. She then placed her shadow blade across her chest and offered him a deeply respectful salute. She thanked him for the blessing, addressing him as her great lord with newfound reverence. Shala declared that she was now ready to offer him her absolute loyalty in every mission. The system then chimed in, noting that Shala's strength had increased and her loyalty had risen accordingly. With her loyalty now sitting at 71, he smiled and gave the order for the group to move out. Their target was the Scorching Mine, and exactly 1 hour later, they arrived at their destination. As they stood before a cave at the foot of a snow-capped mountain, the system issued a warning. This was the special zone known as the Scorching Mine, a place teeming with a large number of scorching people. We are warned of unique dangers and told to approach with caution, as the current threat level is extremely high. It was another extremely dangerous area, but he didn't seem to mind. To be honest, he was getting used to it. His strength had grown significantly since the hunter camp, so he simply waved his hand and led them inside. Andrew, possessing the highest defense, took the lead, while Assam followed closely as the second to enter. As for Shala, she vanished into the shadows the moment they entered, while Mu Shui held her shield high. She watched the surroundings warily, knowing her primary mission was to protect him from any harm as they stepped into the mine. Along the walls of the cavern, we see 1 or 2 torches flickering with strange, blue-colored flames. Upon taking one down, the system informs him that he has acquired a magic Power Stone torch. It is a low-energy lighting tool, where a single stone can provide illumination for up to half a year. Furthermore, the stones can be removed individually, and his eyes lit up, for these stones are quite valuable. Many mechanical creations in this world require energy to function, and they rely entirely on these magic Power Stones. In the later stages of development, energy towers and various other buildings will also require them to stay powered. These items are as good as hard currency, much like elemental crystals, so he promptly instructed Assam and Andrew. He had them remove every single torch from the walls, just as he noticed the iron rails running along the ground. The abandoned mine carts lying nearby could be dismantled for 8 pieces of iron each. Alternatively, they could be repaired back at the territory using 4 pieces of iron, while the rails could be used to build tracks. These tracks would speed up mineral transport, or they could simply be dismantled for 4 pieces of iron each. Since everything here was useful, he decided to take it all before continuing deeper into the mine. Before long, we see dozens of creatures with the heads of rats busily mining away at the rock. These are level 5 rock rat miners, and standing among them is a single rock rat overseer. Upon seeing the intruders, the overseer immediately began brandishing his long whip and let out a furious roar. He ordered them to kill the trespassers, and the swarm of rock rats instantly charged toward our group. However, the gap in power was simply too vast. Andrew merely ran forward, sending the rats flying like bowling pins. Assam was even more composed, handling his long sword with an effortless grace that made the battle look easy. And that is without mentioning the flashes of cold light constantly darting through the darkness. Shala was hard at work. Faced with such overwhelming power, even the rock rat overseer couldn't hide the look of pure terror in his eyes. As Shala and the others cut through the monsters, both he and Lu Mushue were earning half of the experience points. A white light soon enveloped Lu Mushue, signaling that he had already reached level 3. Watching the battlefield ahead, Lu Mushue asked tentatively if he might be allowed to join the fight as well. He saw the earnest look on the young man's face and realized it was indeed time for him to gain some real experience. With his current defense, holding his own against a single rock rat miner shouldn't be much of a problem. He nodded, telling him to be careful, and Lu Mushue took a deep breath before raising his shield. Gripping his long sword in his right hand, he charged forward and quickly engaged one of the rock rat miners. The rock rat swung its iron pickaxe, slamming it into the shield, while Lu Mushue gritted his teeth and held his ground. To his surprise, the creature was only dealing a meager 8 to 13 points of damage per hit. A second later, his health was already being restored by the ice healing spell, ticking up by 10 points at a time. Realizing the rock rat couldn't truly hurt him, Lu Mushue finally let out a sigh of relief. He recalled the combat lessons he had been given earlier, feeling a bit shy about his initial hesitation. Slowly finding his rhythm in the heat of battle, Lu Mushue thrust his sword forward with newfound confidence. He finished off the rock rat directly, and at that same moment, our protagonist raised his own staff. He began firing off ice spears to harvest the remaining low-health rock rats, while the overseer watched in horror. Terrified, the overseer turned to flee deeper into the mine, but that was exactly when Shala made her move. She emerged from the shadows, delivering a single critical strike that instantly emptied the creature's health bar. He praised Shala for a job well done, noting that her level had finally met the requirements for advancement. If he could just find a Tier 2 Heart of Strength now, he could promote Shala into a Tier 3 being. At that point, her strength would double once again. After the battle, we see them begin clearing the field, finding various organs and metals. They also discovered several books of chaos, which could randomly increase a friendly unit's attributes by a factor of 1.4. Additionally, they recovered the long whip held by the Rock Rat Overseer, known simply as the Rock Rat Overseer's whip. It came with a special effect. Using the whip to lash a target would force them to work much faster. For the next 5 minutes, the target's movement speed would be increased by 10%. However, it also had a secondary effect called deepened pain, which increased the sensation of pain during the lashing by 50%. Our protagonist looked at the item with a strange expression, wondering if this could technically be considered a buffing effect. He wondered if, when combined with his hidden talent, this speed boost might actually become a permanent state. And so, under the astonished gazes of Lu Mushue and the others, he suddenly gave himself a fierce lash with the whip. After a sharp, cracking sound, he took a sharp breath of cold air. To be honest, it hurt quite a bit. But immediately after, the system notified him that he was under the whip rat effect, increasing his movement speed by 10%. The effect was meant to last 5 minutes, but then his eternal power talent was triggered. The whip rat buff had become a permanent status. He could only conclude that his theory had actually worked. Combined with the Snakeman Berserk skill, this meant he could now provide himself and his allies with a massive advantage. A permanent 30% increase in movement speed is a huge boost, though Lu Mushue and the others were watching from the side. They were completely baffled by his reaction, which seemed to mix pain with sudden excitement. The upright Assam quickly stepped forward to ask what was wrong. He asked the Lord what had happened, only for our protagonist to ask Assam if he could whip him just once. The group fell into a stunned silence. It was a strange request, to say the least, but because Assam's loyalty was at a staggering 95 points, he wouldn't dream of refusing. He simply nodded, saying that if it was the Lord's wish, he would comply. Our protagonist didn't hesitate to take him up on it. He brought the whip down directly onto Assam, and we see a flicker of pain cross Assam's normally stoic and determined face. Assam frowned from the sudden pain, but almost immediately, he felt a surge of new power flowing through his body. He couldn't help but feel a wave of pleasant surprise, realizing this must have been the Lord's intention all along. With a look of genuine gratitude, he thanked our protagonist for the lash of the whip, calling it a miraculous gift. Then, looking a bit bashful, Assam asked if the Lord could perhaps whip him a few more times. He simply wanted to become even stronger, but our protagonist explained that only the first strike provides the lasting effect. Assam nodded with a hint of regret, while the others standing nearby remained in a state of complete and utter confusion. After clearing his throat, he explained the whip's true effect to the group, then turned his attention toward Andrew and Shala. He offered to bestow the same blessing upon them, and so, a rather unusual ritual began right there in the cave. The sound of cracking whips echoed through the mine for a while, and once everyone was buffed, they continued their journey. They found many iron rails along the way, which he carefully collected until he had gathered over 100 meters of track. Eventually, they reached a fork in the path where the left tunnel seemed to lead deeper into the heart of the mine. The faint roar of machinery drifted from that direction, while the path to the right was sealed off with wooden boards. It looked like a restricted area, but after a moment's thought, he ordered Andrew to tear down the boards and see what was inside. Behind the barrier, we see several overturned minecarts and piles of or scattered haphazardly across the floor. It appeared the rock rats had encountered some sort of emergency and fled, leaving everything behind in their haste. Suddenly, Shala spoke up from the shadows, her voice carrying a note of caution that hadn't been there before. She sensed a dangerous presence lurking within the darkness, causing our protagonist to frown in deep concentration. Shala was a level 20 elite. After all, if she felt a sense of danger, the threat was certainly real. It meant some terrifying creature was hiding nearby, so he asked Shala to scout ahead, and she nodded in silent agreement. She vanished into the shadows instantly, only to reappear before the group just 1 minute later. She reported that the area ahead was the nest of a second-tier magical beast. Its strength was roughly equal to her own, but with the blessing our protagonist had bestowed, combined with Andrew and Assam's help, it shouldn't be a problem. He made his decision instantly. They pressed forward, and along the way, he harvested even more ore from the ground. He even found mithril and mana stones, prompting Mushue to remark on what a profitable trip this was. The ore and minecarts alone made the journey worthwhile as they reached the depths of the tunnel. Here, the light suddenly dimmed, and we see white spider webs appearing on the ceiling and walls. Massive webs eventually filled the entire passage, completely blocking their path forward. At that very moment, a powerful and wicked aura surged toward them from deep within the cave. He ordered Assam to clear the way, but the task proved more difficult than expected. As it turned out, Assam's strike didn't land as expected. Instead, it felt as though he were hacking into a thick, heavy jelly. It took several strikes just to clear a small patch, so Shala offered to take the lead instead. With a single swift motion of her blade, she sliced through the resilient webs with ease, opening a wide gap for the group. As they stepped deeper into the cave, a system notification appeared. They had officially entered a special zone, the nest of the crypt magic spiders. We see the ceiling above covered in webs, with large white cocoons hanging like wrapped bundles. They dangled ominously over the group's heads, while the ground was littered with glowing spheres. These spheres, coated in green slime, were spider eggs. The smaller ones were small magic spider eggs. Breaking one would release several level 3 spiders, while the larger eggs contained level 15 beasts. He surveyed the room, taking in the sheer scale of the infestation before them. With at least dozens of magic eggs littering the ground, he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Just as he considered clearing the eggs first, the webs above began to tremble violently. Suddenly, a terrifying figure over 5 meters wide dropped down, dominating everyone's field of vision. The boss, a crypt magic spider, appeared and immediately spat out a thick glob of webbing. It instantly bound Andrew to the spot, but with a thunderous roar, Andrew's body began to grow. He shifted directly into his great bear form and tore the webs to shreds, breaking free with ease. Our protagonist shouted for them to bring it down, and the transformed Andrew leaped high into the air. He lunged at the crypt magic spider midair, but the creature retreated with surprising speed. Andrew's massive claw strike missed its mark, but right at that critical moment, we see a change. A cold light flew silently from the shadows as Shala's Wall of the Beloved struck the spider true. The crypt magic spider shivered in agony, its entire body convulsing from the impact. A massive damage indicator of 643 points floated above the beast at the same time. Meanwhile, he fired 3 ice cones. Though they only dealt minor damage, they served a greater purpose. One cone triggered a freezing effect, causing the spider's body to stiffen mid-motion. Frost instantly covered its surface, and it plummeted from the ceiling, a sight that filled him with joy. To be honest, this ice cone skill was proving incredibly useful with its 30% freeze chance. Landing all 3 almost guaranteed a brief stun, and as the spider hit the floor, he saw his chance. He immediately ordered Shala to strike, forcing the spider into a desperate, direct confrontation. The beast lunged with a bite, dealing 304 points of damage directly to Andrew. It also applied a poison status that drained 8 health points continuously, even in Great Bear form. Andrew's health pool was truly impressive, nearly breaking the 8,000 point mark. On top of that, green recovery numbers were constantly floating above him as he healed. He simply ignored the damage while locked in a fierce struggle with the crypt magic spider, as Assam and the frost wolf joined in. With Shala also seizing the chance to attack, our protagonist ordered Andrew to continue tanking the spider's strikes. The plan was simple. If his health dropped to half, Assam would take over, but for now, damage numbers filled the air. He took this brief opening to carefully examine the crypt magic spider's specific attributes. It was then he discovered the creature possessed a terrifying skill called Spider Terror Burst. Once the spider's health fell below 30%, it would prematurely hatch every magic egg in the vicinity. The resulting swarm would then be commanded to devour their enemies, a realization that made him feel quite uneasy. He immediately ordered Assam and the frost wolf to break away from the main fight and clear out the nearby eggs. Assam charged toward a small magic egg and pierced it with a single, well-placed arrow. Several small spiders burst out instantly, but Assam was ready, picking them off one by one with his bow. He easily popped the small magic spiders while our protagonist continued to gather the power of frost. He began smashing the eggs with ice orbs, and to his surprise, killing these hatchlings actually granted experience points. Looking at the sheer number of eggs scattered around, he realized this was going to be quite a substantial windfall. Meanwhile, the crypt magic spider's health began to drain like water under the relentless assault of Andrew and Shala. Assam continued to systematically destroy the eggs, with our protagonist following close behind to finish the job. His experience bar began to climb at a rapid pace, while elsewhere, the survivors in the outside world were busy. They were engaged in a heated debate over the level rankings, where players like Fong Long and Zheng Zhobua had already reached level 4. Many of their subordinates whispered that he was just a lucky kid, claiming several of their brothers were already stronger. They were convinced that by teaming up, their leader's level would eventually surpass his, only to be silenced the very next second by his rank. His progress jumped from 52% of level 4 straight to 55%, and just a few seconds later, it leaped again. He hit 60% of level 4 with a speed that left everyone utterly stunned, just as we returned to the cave where the battle reached its climax. The fight was nearing its end, with the crypt magic spider's health dwindling to a mere 1,203 points. After Shala landed a heavy blow, the creature's health plummeted below 600, prompting our protagonist to quickly order her to stop her assault. He then pulled out his barret without a moment's hesitation, while the crypt magic spider, perhaps thinking it might actually survive, tried to flee. As it attempted to leap into the air to escape, he seized the perfect opening and pulled the trigger. A massive damage number instantly floated above the creature, followed by a system notification confirming the kill. He had defeated a level 20 elite creature, the Crypt Magic Spider, earning 5 times the normal experience for the level gap. This brought the total reward to 2,500 points, a truly substantial windfall for the team. The combatants, Lamaksu, Shala, Andrew, and Elena, all shared in the spoils of the victory. Assam gained 1,250 experience points, and with that, our protagonist's level finally increased. Now at level 5, a brilliant white light of ascension rose from both him and Lamaksu simultaneously. Naturally, he was delighted, and he immediately began to examine the loot dropped by the elite beast. Aside from the familiar junior power stars and junior element crystals, there were several entirely new items to discover. Among them was a green quality junior storage contract, a rare find indeed. This particular contract could be used on a wild creature to tame it, turning it into a permanent, exclusive pet. There was also a scroll for the ultimate chaos technique, which could be bestowed upon a loyal follower. It would randomly increase a follower's attributes by 3 or 4 points, a small but significant boost, to be honest. Finally, he found an elite magic spider soul crystal, an item intended for a follower below the 2nd rank. This item had a high probability of purifying a creature into an elite rank, and seeing this, our protagonist's eyes lit up with interest. He scanned his surroundings for a moment before his gaze finally settled on Assam. Assam was currently only a 2nd-rank ordinary creature, and if he could be elevated to the elite rank, it would be a game-changer. He would become significantly stronger, so without further delay, he called Assam over to his side. He tossed the magic spider soul crystal directly to him, knowing that Assam's strength was about to reach a new level. He explained that this would make his elite status even more powerful, and Assam didn't hesitate for a single second. Assam pressed the crystal directly into his body, and in the next instant, his entire frame suddenly went stiff. An incredibly powerful aura began to rise from his body, swirling around him with newfound intensity. A system notification confirmed that Assam had used the crystal and successfully purified into an elite rank creature. All of his attributes increased by 30%, and he even unlocked a bonus skill called Frost Sword Chi. This skill allowed him to condense frost power into a blade of energy that could freeze all enemies within 30 meters. It would deal 166% attack damage, and we see that Assam could feel this massive power surge himself. Realizing his strength had grown by a huge margin, he knelt down with deep emotion and excitement. He thanked his lord fervently for the incredible power he had just been granted. Our protagonist simply told him that there was no need for such a display, as this was a reward he had truly earned. After that, he reached into his backpack once more and pulled out a junior power crystal. This item could be used by a lord or a summoned creature, and he glanced over at the frost wolf leader nearby. The wolf was also a capable creature who met the requirements for advancement, needing only to reach the 2nd rank. If he succeeded, then everyone under his command, except for Elena, would finally be at the 2nd rank. And so, he handed the Heart of Power to Assam, instructing him to help his Frost Wolf companion complete the advancement. A powerful knight truly needs a powerful mount to unleash his full combat potential, and our protagonist knew this well. Hearing these words, Assam took the crystal with trembling hands, looking at his lord with silent, profound gratitude. He then turned around and walked directly toward the Frost Wolf leader, Lingdong. He told Lingdong to accept the power bestowed upon him by the Lord. He declared they would defend the Lord's glory to the death, and with those words, the process began. Assam tossed the crystal forward, and Lingdong the wolf swallowed it in a single, swift gulp. In an instant, Lingdong's aura surged to a terrifying level, and his body grew from 3 meters in length to nearly 4 meters long. He nodded in satisfaction before turning his attention to the final reward. It was a blue-quality magic orb staff, which featured a passive junior mana amplification effect. Besides a 40% chance to increase magic attack damage by 10%, it had another trick up its sleeve. It could summon a first-rank magic orb between levels 5 and 10 to assist in battle, which was quite powerful indeed. Delighted, he ordered the group to search the cave for any other hidden treasures, and a few minutes later, Sarah discovered a treasure chest tucked away in a corner, an unlocked silver chest, to be precise. Inside, they found a backpack, some blueprints, and a few rations and medical kits. The noble's backpack was green quality, offering 40 slots of capacity and a bonus of 4 charisma points. There was also a blueprint for a medium shelter, which could accommodate up to 6 people. It provided a passive recovery effect for any allied units resting inside the structure. This effect restored 0.5 health points per second. There was also a blueprint for crafting iron greaves. These could be forged at a blacksmith shop using the right materials. He equipped the new backpack with a satisfied smile. Finally, he looked at the empty silver chest as the system asked if he wished to dismantle the open container. The dismantling was a success, yielding 10 pieces of wood. By this point, the entire Earth Blood Demon Cave had been thoroughly picked clean of its treasures. Our group then returned to the original fork in the path. This time, we see them heading down the left tunnel, traveling nearly 500 meters into the gloom. The mine shaft ahead began to widen significantly. It was then that a creature nearly 2 meters tall appeared. It was a monster covered entirely in iron plating, a mechanical beast, to be precise, that suddenly blocked their way. This was an I-person tech burrowing robot. Upon spotting our group, it didn't hesitate for a second. The robot emitted a mechanical whir, signaling that enemies needed to be cleared, and immediately charged toward them. The newly evolved twin wolves took the lead, but the burrowing robot was far sturdier than it looked. A single collision nearly sent the wolves flying, draining over 100 points of their health in an instant. Its attack power was surprisingly high. However, even with such strength, it stood little chance against the group's coordinated assault. The burrowing robot's durability was rapidly depleted under the relentless barrage of blows. He approached the now-scrapped robot, and the system promptly offered him a very interesting choice. He could either dismantle it for various metal materials or use some of his own resources to repair it. Once repaired, it would become a permanent ally capable of following simple commands. A loyal machine, if you will. His eyes lit up at the prospect. He had already witnessed the robot's formidable combat capabilities firsthand. Moreover, this machine could be used for actual mining, making it a truly versatile multifunctional tool. Since he had collected plenty of metal along the way, he had more than enough to complete the repairs. He chose to repair it, and in just a few moments, the previously scrapped machine began to hum with life again. It stood back up, ready for duty. He took a quick look at its status panel to see what it could do. He discovered that its maximum speed reached an impressive 30 kilometers per hour. Not bad for a pile of scrap. Its standby energy consumption was impressively low, requiring only 1 unit of energy every 30 days. It was, quite frankly, remarkably practical. However, just as things were settling down, another dangerous presence began to approach them rapidly from the shadows. Suddenly, dozens of glowing red eyes appeared within the deep darkness of the mine shaft, watching our group intently. It was a large swarm of Rock People soldiers armed with spears, accompanied by 2 different models of Rock People robots. One might say they had stirred up a hornet's nest, but considering the strength of his own team, he wasn't particularly worried. He immediately ordered Assam to move back and protect them, while Andrew, Sarah, and Lingdong went forward to clear out the opposition. Facing the incoming army, Sarah didn't feel a shred of fear. On the contrary, she seemed quite excited for the brawl. In the next moment, she charged straight ahead, while Andrew followed suit by shifting into his massive great bear form without hesitation. The twin wolves and Lingdong let out a fierce roar. Suddenly, a white bear, a twin-headed wolf, and a blur of black shadows crashed into the Rock People army, starting a chaotic melee. Given that his 3 companions were at the second tier of power, facing level 7 Rock People soldiers was a complete slaughter. As the enemies fell one by one, the battle became a one-sided affair. Notifications for experience points began to flash across his vision continuously. As for those 2 formidable Rock People machines, they were promptly dismantled by Sarah, whose repeated critical strikes blew them apart in a matter of seconds. A phantom assassin with infinite health regeneration is, to put it mildly, practically invincible. By the time the battle ended, his experience bar had already climbed to 86% of level 5. He was getting closer to his next breakthrough. Lu Muxue was equally thrilled to find that she had also reached level 5 during the intense skirmish. The 2 of them now firmly held the top 2 spots on the regional leaderboard, dominating the rankings entirely. To put that in perspective, the 3rd-place player, Zhou Bo, was only at level 4 with 43% experience. Naturally, the chat channel for District 174 exploded once again, with everyone marveling at how terrifyingly strong Chao Xing had become. It seemed as though his leveling speed was fueled by something supernatural, leaving everyone else in the dust. At the same time, others began to wonder who this Lu Muxue was, and through their chatter, they finally remembered. Before the crossing, the fashion magazines in their home city of Xiangjiang had once listed the top 10 goddesses. One of them was indeed named Lu Muxue. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Fang Long's face turned a grim shade of ashen gray. He had originally intended to catch up to Chao Xing today, but now it seemed the gap between them was only widening. Deep down, he knew that if Chao Xing maintained this momentum and secured the top spot on the level rankings, and claimed that boss-level creature summoning voucher, he would stand even less of a chance against him. Realizing he couldn't let this continue, Fang Long sent another message to his subordinates to check on their progress. He demanded to know if they had found the coordinates for Chao Xing's camp yet, but the reply was disappointing. Currently, everyone was restricted from venturing too far from their own camps, making it nearly impossible to investigate. Fang Long cursed them as useless and hung up, knowing full well that finding a specific camp's location at this stage, without the owner actively exposing it, was a monumental task. However, a sudden thought occurred to him. He remembered that Lu Muxue seemed to be staying with that brat, Chao Xing. And since Lu Muxue's family had contacted him just yesterday, he wondered if he could use them as a way in. The more Fang Long thought about finding their camp coordinates this way, the more he felt it might actually work. It was common knowledge that Lu Muxue had been strictly controlled by her family, forced to report her every move. She was quite obedient to her parents, and her father, Lu Jingjie, was a man who cared only for profit. It would likely only take a few pieces of food to buy his cooperation. At that thought, Fang Long flashed a wicked smile. He opened his friend list and immediately placed a call to Lu Jingjie. We returned to the mine where the battle had just concluded, and Lu Muxue suddenly received a video call request. Seeing it was from her father, she looked toward Chao Xing and asked softly, "Hey Xing, what should I do?" "My father is calling again," Lu Muxue said, noting it seemed urgent. "Should I answer?" At this point, her trust in Chao Xing far outweighed her trust in her own family. He thought for a moment and told her to take it. "See what he wants," he suggested, "but speak to him as if I'm not here with you." Lu Muxue nodded and accepted the call. On the other end, Lu Jingjie appeared on the screen, looking visibly agitated. "Xiaoxue, you finally picked up. We've sent you so many messages. Why haven't you replied to your own parents?" Hearing her family trying to exert control over her again, Lu Muxue's expression turned cold. She wasn't having it. "Just tell me what you want," she said bluntly. Sensing her icy tone, Lu Jingjie realized his usual tactics weren't working. He suppressed his rising anger, forcing a smile onto his face as he replied that it was nothing major. He claimed he just wanted to know how she was doing and, more importantly, where her camp was located. "Your mother and I have been reflecting these past 2 days," he continued, sounding quite remorseful. "We feel terrible." He admitted they had been too harsh in the past and said they wanted to visit her once the novice protection period ended. He even mentioned bringing her 2 younger brothers along. He sounded sincere, or at least, he tried his best to. However, Lu Muxue was a sharp woman, and she immediately sensed that something was very wrong with this sudden change of heart. She muted the audio and turned off the video feed, turning back to Chao Xing to whisper her concerns. "Hey Xing, it's suspicious that my father is suddenly asking for our coordinates. Knowing their temperaments, they wouldn't just feel guilty." Chao Xing considered the situation. To be honest, the timing was far too convenient to be a mere coincidence. At this stage, most survivors couldn't even venture 10 kilometers beyond their own camps without facing extreme danger. The idea of searching for another survivor's base was practically unheard of. Furthermore, knowing Lu Muxue's father and her mother's incredibly cowardly nature, there was no way they would ever take such a risk on their own. It was clear someone else had put Lu Jingjie up to this, hoping to use Muxue's family to fish for the camp's coordinates. Chao Xing realized these people certainly had a plan, and deep down, he knew exactly who was pulling the strings. It was undoubtedly one of those rivals on the leaderboard competing for the top spot, with Fang Long being the prime suspect. Given their past conflicts, a curious smile played on his lips as he decided how to handle the situation. He told Muxue to give them specific coordinates, providing the location of a massive gathering of hostile marauders instead. Those marauders were currently planning a terrifying massacre, and if Fang Long actually decided to go there, well, he was in for a nasty surprise. After that little interlude, we see Chao Xing turn his attention back to the 2 robots that had been destroyed earlier. He stood before the wreckage of the Silkworm combat robot and the multi-generation robot, both of which were still salvageable. To be honest, it was a relief they could be fixed, and with a quick command, he initiated the repair process. The 2 machines stood up once more, their mechanical voices droning out. "Master, please give us your orders." These robots possessed combat power comparable to elite monsters of the same level, making them invaluable assets. When combined with his unique talent, their strength reached an entirely new level, significantly boosting the team's overall power. Next, he ordered the rest of the group to conduct a thorough search of the entire mine to see what else remained. It turned out to be a massive harvest, yielding over 1,000 pieces of common iron ore and hundreds of rare minerals. As they continued deeper into the tunnels, a faint light suddenly appeared in the distance, cutting through the darkness. They soon discovered that this light marked another entrance to the mine, and Assam stepped forward to investigate. He noted that there were numerous tracks from carts and vehicles scattered around the mouth of the cave. It seemed the salt rats had likely used this hidden passage to transport the high quality ore they had already mined. Realizing they probably couldn't catch up now, he decided it was time to head back, as their haul was already quite impressive. However, as they were making their way back to the camp, Shala suddenly appeared from the shadows where she had been scouting. "My lord," she reported urgently, "there is a fierce battle taking place just up ahead." We see a group of marauders surrounding a tundra mammoth, and the druid beside, Chao Xing, was visibly confused. The tundra mammoth is a powerful social creature, and given the marauders' usual strength, it seemed impossible for them to handle such a formidable beast. Shala shook her head, clarifying the situation. It was actually a lone juvenile mammoth, and unfortunately, it had fallen directly into the marauders' trap. Hearing this, a flash of anger appeared in the druid's eyes. Those damn marauders were truly relentless. Destroying the city defenses apparently wasn't enough for them. Now they had extended their wicked hands toward the sacred mammoth as well. The druid insisted that these destroyers of nature had to be punished for their actions. He pleaded with the Lord to help the poor mammoth, hoping Chao Xing would intervene. Chao Xing simply replied that they should go and assess the marauders' strength first. They soon arrived at the edge of a canyon where several 100-meter-long giant trees had been laid across. These served as makeshift bridges, though one of the massive trunks had clearly snapped in half. It appeared something had fallen through, and looking down into the canyon, they saw a creature with an injured leg. The mammoth, now entangled in heavy iron chains, was being relentlessly harassed by over a dozen marauders. Chao Xing took a moment to check the mammoth's attributes, noting it was a level 20, tier 2 boss creature. At full health, its HP reached a staggering 15,000 points, a truly impressive figure. It even possessed various terrifying skills, though the mammoth's current condition was quite dire. Due to the fall and the subsequent ambush, its health had plummeted to below 2,000. The group of marauders consisted of 1 level 15 elite and 5 tier 2 warriors above level 10. The rest were all below level 10, which, to be honest, didn't even catch Chao Xing's interest. Without wasting another second, Chao Xing ordered his entire team to move out and eliminate every marauder in the canyon. Seeing such powerful opponents suddenly appear, the face of the lone elite marauder turned pale with immediate dread. In the next heartbeat, he felt a sudden chill on the back of his neck as Shala appeared behind him, completely undetected. Her shadow blade then struck out, silent and deadly, as though it were a natural extension of the darkness itself. A terrifying damage figure of over 1,700 points flashed instantly, which was quite a shock for anyone watching. The elite marauder gasped in pain and desperation, his only thought being to turn and flee for his life. But an enemy marked by Shala has no chance of escape, a fact he was about to learn the hard way. On the other side of the clearing, Andrew and Assam were busy swatting the ordinary marauders away one by one. The battle ended quickly, and Chao Xing instructed Assam and the others to begin clearing the battlefield immediately. Andrew then followed Chao Xing as they approached the fallen tundra mammoth to assess its condition. The mammoth's situation was grim. It was riddled with negative status effects, and its health was steadily draining away. It had already entered a near-death state, and Andrew looked upon the creature with eyes full of deep compassion. He stepped forward to gently stroke the mammoth's massive head before turning to Chao Xing with a pleading gaze. He asked if there was any way to save the beast, so Chao Xing attempted to cast a frost healing spell. However, a system prompt revealed that healing skills could not be used on non-friendly units, causing Chao Xing to frown. He explained that his power was reserved for his own subjects, and he had no direct way to save the mammoth. A flash of despair crossed Andrew's eyes as damage numbers continued to rise from the mammoth's head. Its health had already dropped below 1,000, but in that moment, Chao Xing remembered something important. When they had defeated the giant spider earlier, the system had rewarded him with a pet contract. He wondered if it would work on such a powerful creature, for if the mammoth became an ally, he could save it. If it became an ally, he could finally heal it. So, we see Chao Xing ask Andrew if he can communicate with the beast. Andrew explains that simple communication is possible, so Chao Xing tells him to ask if the creature is willing to become his pet. He makes it clear that only by signing a pet contract and joining his side can he actually provide the necessary aid. Andrew hesitates for a moment, knowing full well that the tundra mammoth race is as powerful as it is proud. Very few warriors have ever managed to tame such a creature, but to save its life, he has no choice but to try. Andrew does his best to persuade the beast, gently placing his paw upon the mammoth's massive, wounded body. He begins to utter a series of strange, rhythmic syllables, and the mammoth painfully shifts its gaze toward them. It looks from Chao Xing to Andrew, and after a moment of heavy hesitation, it finally lets out a low, mournful cry. Andrew immediately turns back with a look of pure joy, calling out to his lord with the good news. The mammoth has agreed to become his pet, and now Chao Xing can finally bring it under his command to begin the healing. A look of pleasant surprise crosses Chao Xing's face. A boss-level creature, and still in its infancy, is a rare find indeed. Its potential is truly undeniable. Without further delay, he pulls out the pet contract scroll he had been saving. Normally, the success rate of such a scroll is incredibly low, but since the mammoth has already given its consent and will not offer any resistance, the chance of success has reached a perfect 100%. The scroll vanishes as it is activated, transforming into a sphere of pure white light that strikes the mammoth's body. At that exact moment, the great beast feels the shift in its soul, sensing the new bond being forged. Deep down, Chao Xing feels a connection establish itself as the system confirms the contract was a total success. The tundra mammoth is now officially his pet, though it curiously increases the territory's population count by 5. He is momentarily taken aback by such a high population cost, but considering the creature's sheer power, he quickly accepts it. With the bond finalized, the system now grants him the opportunity to give his new companion a proper name. He decides to name the creature Dubai, and immediately asks Lu Muxua to throw a few more purification agents its way. The goal is to clear all negative status effects, while Chao Xing casts an ice healing spell of his own. He begins treating Dubai, knowing that from here, they simply need to wait for the beast's health to slowly recover. A little later, the tundra mammoth's health has climbed back above 10,000, eventually reaching 12,000. However, the recovery suddenly hits a wall, as the creature is still suffering from a severe bone fracture. With its maximum health reduced by 20%, poor Dubai can barely manage to stand, let alone walk. Seeing this, Chao Xing asks Andrew to help the creature recover from its physical trauma. Andrew nods and moves behind Dabai, lifting one of his own thick legs to steady and comfort the massive beast. He tells the mammoth to endure the pain for just a moment, and then, with a sudden, powerful wrenching motion, a sharp, loud crack of bone resetting echoes through the air, followed by a pained cry from Dabai. Though the process deals over 2,000 damage, Dabai's health immediately begins to surge upward once more. It continues until the beast is restored to its full peak condition, at which point the mammoth raises its trunk high. It lets out a powerful, spirited roar before lowering its head and walking submissively toward Xiaoxing. The great beast gently nuzzles him with its trunk, and at that moment, a system notification appears. Because he saved Dabai's life, the mammoth's loyalty toward its new master has significantly increased. Its loyalty now sits at 90. Once it reaches 100, he will have the creature's absolute, unwavering trust. This will unlock the mount function, but for now, we see Assam return after finishing his scouting of the area. He comes over to report his findings, so we turn our attention to the surrounding terrain where Dabai was found. Looking at the path the mammoth took, we see this canyon is roughly 70 to 80 meters deep. The cliffs on both sides are quite steep, with only a few large, protruding rocks breaking the vertical drop. We can see that while the team could easily climb out, a creature as massive as Dabai simply cannot make the ascent. After considering their options, Xiaoxing decides they should head deeper into the canyon to find a more accessible path upward. With only 2 hours of daylight remaining, the pressure is on to find a way out before total darkness sets in. He sends Sarah out on her own to scout ahead, hoping to expand their search area and find a solution quickly. Half an hour later, Sarah returns with a report. She has spotted 4 powerful Tier 2 enemies nearby. One of these Tier 2 presences feels particularly formidable, possessing a strength similar to that of the tundra mammoth. Xiaoxing quietly weighs the combat strength of both sides in his mind, realizing what this truly means. There is likely a level 20 boss tier creature ahead, guarded by 3 or 4 elite level hunters. The two sides seem evenly matched, though our heroes do have the advantage of infinite health regeneration. That certainly tips the scales in their favor. It is then that Sarah adds one more crucial detail to her report. Next to the enemy camp, she spotted a set of stairs constructed from massive boulders. They can use that path to climb out, so there is no reason to wait. It is time to move out. The plan is simple. Deliver judgment upon these crazed cultists. Meanwhile, back at the enemy base, a patrolling hunter suddenly spots an armored knight riding atop a pair of wolves. Alongside him is a dragonkin running on all fours, flanked by 3 robots charging forward at full speed. As the group hurtles toward them, the hunters transition from initial confusion to a state of pure panic. Shouts of an enemy attack begin to echo through the camp. These hunters are part of a notorious cult, a faction so despised across the continent that they are essentially hunted by everyone they encounter. To them, every living soul is a potential enemy, and so they immediately grab their weapons and rush from their tents. As the battle begins, Xiaoxing receives a sudden notification from the system. We see a notification that they have discovered a hunter's central camp, where a black-robed priest of the Church of Light is currently stationed. The system warns that it is extremely dangerous, and Xiaoxing realizes this priest must be the powerful leader Sarah mentioned. Despite the warning about this boss-tier opponent, he doesn't hesitate for a single second. He orders Assam and the others to continue their charge forward to deal with the rank-and-file hunters. The Tier 2 Andrew cuts through them with ease, while the rock element robots simply steamroll everything in their path. Very quickly, the tide of battle begins to turn, and the hunters show signs of a total collapse. Suddenly, a group of much more formidable hunters rushes out, including one wielding a massive flail. With a grim expression, the leader declares he will handle the giant bear himself. He tells his subordinates to pick their own targets, and in the next heartbeat, he lunges toward Andrew. At the same time, 3 other cloaked hunters move to intercept the rest of our group. They engage Assam and the 2 drilling robots, and suddenly, the battlefield reaches a tense stalemate. Xiaoxing checks their attributes and sees they are all level 15, Tier 2 elite creatures. Quite a handful, to be honest. Seeing the struggle, Sarah asks if they should step in to help the others. He tells her it isn't necessary, as they still have a trump card they haven't played yet. With a calm look, he turns to Dabai and gives the command to join the fray. A terrifying roar echoes through the canyon a second later as the massive beast moves out. Dabai charges straight into the battlefield, instantly sending every hunter in his path flying through the air. But just as they seem to have the upper hand, a dark shadow darts out from the center of the camp. This newcomer moves with a speed that is significantly faster than even Sarah's. The figure suddenly appears directly behind Dabai, the cold glint of a blade flashing through the air. The strike instantly drains over 1,000 health from Dabai, who turns his head in a sudden burst of pain. He swings his trunk in a massive arc, but the opponent simply flickers away with an agile dodge. And here we finally see the figure clearly, a man dressed in flowing black robes and a mask. The system identifies him as a black-robed priest of the hunters, a title that carries significant weight. He is a level 20, tier 2 boss tier combatant, and without missing a beat, the priest lunges again. He charges at Dabai once more, using his ethereal movement to completely suppress the massive beast with his blade. Watching the struggle, Lu Mushua notes with worry that Dabai doesn't seem to be a match for him. But Dabai won't be alone for long, as Sarah has already finished off her enemies in total silence. Under Chao Xing's command, Sarah immediately sprints toward the black-robed priest to intervene. As her shadow blade sweeps through the air, the priest feels a sudden, icy chill creeping up his spine. His expression shifts to one of pure shock, and at the critical moment, he spins around to thrust his dagger. A metallic clash rings out, and realizing Sarah's strength is equal to his own, the priest can't help but cry out. He is stunned to find another master on the field, but Sarah remains silent, swinging her blade once more. The two high-level assassins engage in a frantic close-quarters struggle, though Sarah's attributes are slightly lower. She is soon pushed back, but before the priest can celebrate his advantage, the situation changes. Dabai seizes the opening from behind, using a powerful strike to send the priest flying through the air. Meanwhile, with the arrival of the tracked and bucket robots, the 4 hunter elites are quickly dealt with. Chao Xing orders Assam and the others to pivot and support Sarah, causing the priest's face to darken further. He was already struggling just to hold his own against these two powerful creatures by himself. Now that several more formidable opponents are rushing his way, he realizes he simply cannot win this fight. Damn it, he curses, wondering where this group of masters came from and how they managed to find his camp. The priest is already planning his escape, but every time he tries to move, Shala is right there like a shadow. She relentlessly presses her advantage, leaving him with absolutely no opportunity to slip away. Furthermore, Dabai's powerful attacks continue to rain down, and in this moment of crisis, the priest spits out a final threat. I have memorized your faces. Once I leave, I will report this to my superiors. He vows they will be hunted across the Gale snowfield by the Church of Light, just as a spherical object suddenly appears in his hand. He hurls it to the ground, and a thick cloud of smoke instantly billows upward to mask his movements. His figure vanishes, and by the time we see him again, he has already put a significant distance between himself and the group. Watching this, Chao Xing merely sneers, certain that he won't let such a prize catch fly away now. He pulls out his long-range rifle, the Barrett, and in an instant, a thunderous gunshot echoes through the air. A massive 874 points of damage pops up as the bullet tears through the black-robed priest. The strike even triggers an armor-piercing effect, causing the fleeing hunter leader to stumble mid-sprint. His body sags heavily, and he turns back with great difficulty to look at Chao Xing with a gaze full of shock. Filled with pure disbelief, he simply collapses to the ground, his escape cut short permanently. The system confirms the kill of the hunter priest, awarding 4,800 experience points for the feat. Now at level 7, Chao Xing collects the spoils, a strong leader soul, and several rare items. Among the loot are the blue-tier silent thorn and a blueprint for a tavern construction. The system offers its congratulations, as he is the first survivor on the server to slay a boss-tier creature. For this first kill reward, he receives the dual-action magic shield skill book and destroys the hunter camp. With 200 reputation points gained, Chao Xing can only remark that the rewards are truly magnificent. We see Chao Xing immediately open his backpack to inspect that glowing purple mass, the strong leader soul. It can be used on any elite tier follower below rank 2, giving them a high chance to evolve into a boss tier creature. With a success rate between 50 and 80%, a look of pure ecstasy spreads across his face. The idea that an elite could evolve into a boss is staggering, as it doesn't just boost every single attribute. It also allows the follower to learn an entirely new skill, which is a massive advantage. This is a qualitative leap in power, to be sure. He looks around at Assam, Andrew, and Shala, who all meet the requirements. Naturally, the territory members can sense the soul's magical power. They know this is their chance to undergo a complete transformation and reach a much higher level of existence. A look of deep longing appears in everyone's eyes. Even the usually cold Shala can't help but stare at him. After thinking it over for a moment, he decides to toss the soul directly to Shala. Shala catches it, standing there in a daze of disbelief, asking if he is truly certain about giving it to her. He nods, knowing that at this stage, Shala is the most suitable candidate for such a powerful soul. Once she becomes a boss, her already formidable combat strength will receive a truly massive boost. He tells her to use it, expressing his hope that she will become the strongest assassin of all. He speaks of restoring the glory of the Hall of Shadows, and we can see Shala's breathing grow rapid with excitement. She takes the soul and immediately absorbs it into her body, just as a system notification pops up. It informs him that his generosity has deeply moved Shala, and her loyalty has increased significantly. Her loyalty now stands at 91, which leaves him quite satisfied. To be honest, 91 is an incredible score. It's a level where she would be willing to face death for him, or even sacrifice her life if necessary. While waiting for Shala to complete her transformation, he turns his attention to the second purple item. We see that the second item is the first kill reward from the system, the dual action shield skill book. This skill applies a protective shield around the user or an ally, reducing all incoming damage by 20%. Every second, the shield pulses, affecting nearby enemy units with the power of the dual-action shield. It deals frost damage based on the user's spirit and reduces the enemy's movement and attack speed by 20%. The shield effect lasts for 60 seconds, and he can choose to toggle it on or off as needed. Deep down, Chao Xing is shocked once again. This is a powerful skill that combines damage reduction and crowd control. He immediately clicks to learn it and then casts the skill upon himself to test its power. The system promptly notifies him that his eternal power talent has been activated. The skill has now become a permanent state, and meanwhile, Shala has finally completed her transformation. The system informs him that Shala has successfully evolved, and this time, the skill success rate was 30%. She has acquired a brand new skill, the 5-Light Flash. It allows her to dash forward at extreme speeds, dealing 110% cutting damage to all enemies in her path. He nods with satisfaction and announces that they should search the entire camp for supplies. They prepare for the return journey, finding plenty of coins, food, and even wine during the looting process. And now, it is time for him to make a truly major move.